It's the commencement of a new month and the next half of the year is upon us. My name is Patrice Lumumba. Welcome to the AM News here on the AM show. So, very first story, former President John Dramani Mahama says that he would ensure the minority in Parliament kicks against any non-concessionary loans presented by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. According to him, the National Democratic Congress will no longer allow government to borrow excessively. Mr. Mahama was speaking at the launch of a think tank, Think Ghana, on the theme Ghana's Debt Burden, Reflections and Solutions. Samuel Mbura has more in this report.
The former president, who was speaking at a launch of a think tank, Think Progress Ghana, said government used the country's revenue streams as collateral for loans and has nothing to show for it. In view of this, the NDC will not take part in what he refers to as the destruction of the country by the government.
This government has collateralized almost all revenue streams and is seeking to collateralize more, including our gold royalties, under the dubious Ejapa deal. In view of the above, we in the NDC cannot lend support to the 1 billion syndicated loan agreement, and our MPs are poised to oppose and vote against it in Parliament. We wish to serve notice going forward that the NDC in Parliament will not support any further non-concessionary borrowing or loans that are not project-specific with clear and unambiguous terms of the benefit to our nation. We will not partake in the destruction of the Ghanaian economy, which this government appears so bent on doing.
He suggests the finance minister be sacked and a ministerial reshuffle be carried out.
Meanwhile, it will serve the president well to use some items from the presidential toolkits in times of crisis such as this. There's a toolkit with some items in it that presidents can use when they are faced with this kind of crisis. The first is he should address the nation and explain the situation in which we are and rally the support of the citizens behind any economic program that he wants to put forward. The second is he should fire his finance minister. And the third is he should conduct a major shake-up of his government to remove all the many dead woods that have turned ministries into their kingdoms. And then finally, he should huddle with the best brains of this country to formulate a comprehensive recovery plan for our economy. Many of the ministers who have superintended over ministries that are non-performing have some political links with the president, and therefore it makes it impossible for him to remove them from their positions, even when he himself can see that some of those ministers have presidential ambitions. And I mean, it should be easy for you to remove them so that they can concentrate on their presidential ambitions.
The raging IMF debate to go or not go, Mr. Mahama believes the MPP does not want to go for a bailout because of their previous mockery of his government.
The Akakpo administration knows this too well, but political posturing, empty grandstanding, and a morbid fear of their own pedestrian politicking around less serious problems of the recent past have immobilized and frozen them into action. Inaction which continues to run our economy aground and worsening the living conditions of our people by the day. And with this, I'm referring to their criticism of my administration when we decided to go to the IMF. They said it's only lazy governments that go to the IMF. And I mean, the words they said in that past have come to haunt them. So one of the reasons why they're afraid to go to the IMF is that what they said in the past will follow them.
The Think Progress think tank is expected to research and analyze policies of the government in the interest of the public. Samuel Mbura reporting for Joy News.
More on this later on the show. Womenly host Felix Kwachi Ofosu. Now, Transport Minister Kweku Ofori-Atta has told Parliament that the Ghana Airport Company Limited did not breach the procurement laws in awarding a contract to Frontiers Healthcare Limited to test for COVID-19 at the Kotoka International Airport. Kweku Ofori-Atta explains that the company fully complied with procurement laws. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante has the rest of the story.
The deal between the Airport Company Limited and Frontiers Healthcare Services came under intense scrutiny, with some civil society organizations and opposition activists alleging corruption in the manner the contract was signed. The testing regime, although now relaxed, is still being undertaken at the airport. Transport Minister Patrice Lumumba has been explaining to MPs that the procurement laws of the country were followed.
Ghana Airport Company Limited strictly followed its established procedures in awarding concessions to our clients. The company sought and secured approval from the Public Procurement Authority before the award of the space to Frontiers Health Services Group was done.
This answer did not satisfy MP for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, who asked the original question. He called on the minister to present the contract between the airport company and Frontiers to Parliament.
I asked a question, the question was not answered. And the response he gave, my view is that...
Are you sure the question was not answered?
It wasn't answered.
Say that it wasn't answered in your satisfaction.
Was it your satisfaction, right, Honorable Speaker?
Well, that's the information he's giving us.
I can see that you are not satisfied with the answer he gave.
Well, that's not your... So that's your second question.
With your guidance, could the minister furnish this house with the contractual agreement between government of Ghana through the airport company and the Frontier Health?
Second Deputy Speaker Andrew Amokwesiama directed the minister to present the contract to the House next week, a directive the minister said he will comply with.
Mr. Speaker, at my vetting, I presented that particular document, and given the opportunity, I will bring it before this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So do you promise to fetch the House with the agreement? Is that what you are saying?
Mr. Speaker, I will do that because I had presented that document before this House as part of my document for vetting. That document is in this House, but if you request on me, I will also bring it.
Very well. So on that note, when do you think you can furnish that information? Or...
Mr. Speaker, if you instruct me, I'm before you.
So can you provide us next week with the information?
Next week, I'll
Very well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well.
Government officials, including President Akakpo, defended the Frontiers deal as limiting the country's risk of importing COVID-19 cases from other countries. But a year and a half since the country started implementing the Frontiers deal at the airport, experts have concluded that the testing regime helped the country greatly in this regard. But there are those who say that there was no value for money and that the country could have gained more by giving the likes of Noguchi and other state testing agencies the ability to test at the airport. Per the original contractual agreement, Ghana Airport Company receives $10 of the royalties per test, and Frontier Healthcare Services keeps the rest as their service charge. The total cost for one test was $150.
The Private Health Sector Alliance of Ghana is calling on regulatory bodies in the health sector to step up their oversight responsibilities. This, they say, will ensure an enabling environment for the private sector to function properly in achieving universal health coverage. There's more in the following report.
The private health sector has grown and diversified significantly in Ghana over the years. However, effective collaboration between the Ministry of Health and private sector players has not been optimal. Speaking at its second Private Health Sector Summit, a virologist and the president of Private Health Sector Alliance of Ghana, Dr. Alexander Martin Odum, told Joy News that as private sector players, they are faced with several challenges.
What the private sector really faces is the processes of getting your regulators to give you your license. It is a laborious process. We need to make it more streamlined. It has to be a process where you know when you start, you're going to go through it this way or that way. But when it's made up of a lot of bottlenecks, then you get frustrated even in the process of becoming a legally mandated facility.
He further explained the consequences these challenges may pose to the health sector if not addressed.
If not addressed, what will happen is that there will be what we refer to as quacks in the system. A quack is somebody who claims a certain profession or claims to be of a certain profession and therefore operate in that profession, when in reality he or she does not have that qualification. And because the person has not been found out, it's just going ahead doing what they please. You find out that a doctor could work like 13 years before the regulators finally find out that he's a quack. Do we know how many deaths have been created? That's going to affect universal health coverage.
Dr. Martin Odum, however, urged the various regulatory bodies in the sector to ensure equity in the discharge of their duties.
So we need to streamline the processes of regulation, and we need to have regulators be up and doing. From facilities that are not meant to be laboratories must not run laboratories. If they are going to run laboratories, then the HEFRA must ensure that the same standard they demand of the laboratory must be demanded of a pharmacy, for example, who wants to do laboratory tests. It is not allowed by the laws. Therefore, we are saying that if they must do it, then it must be done by a laboratory professional. The facility must be accredited as such. But you can't register, for example, if I'm a lab, I can't register to be a lab and be selling paracetamol.
Mausi Numon's report for Joy News.
Our Municipal Chief Executive for Wenchi in the Puno region is asking government to fix deplorable roads in the area. According to him, the bad nature of the road is making life unbearable for residents, affecting general economic activities. And Asabet now reports.
The Municipal Chief Executive for Wenchi, Alexander K. Obo Damwa, has bemoaned the poor road network within the Wenchi township. The MC, who was speaking to Joy News at the back of the election of the presiding member of the Assembly, expressed concern over the deplorable nature of the Wenchi-Techiman Road.
Wenchi, as we are all aware, we have challenges in our inner roads in Wenchi, which is in very deplorable state. So I did mention of the Techiman, Wenchi-Techiman Road, and then Buadang, especially Kamu roads. Since the photo of this, I don't know even how to describe it.
He says the situation is adversely affecting the economic activities of the area and noted that even though several attempts have been made to get the Highways Authority to attend to the situation, nothing is being done about it.
Being Municipal Chief Executive, I have done my part. I've been to highways on several occasions for them to intervene. But it seems all my effort has proved futile. So I'm pleading that those who have the say in this should also come on board, so that we all plead to the government that they can come and then, even if not to reconstruct the road, but even to do some patching for us, so that it will be accessible for us.
He however noted that the security of the area has been improved due to the hard work of the municipality's security personnel.
The security situation in Wenchi is very perfect. Where Wenchi used to be an armed robbery prone area, especially from Wenchi to Wa, but with the help of our able security men, it seems the armed robbers are even afraid to come near. So right now, what I can say is the security in Wenchi is very perfect.
Newly elected presiding member of the Assembly, James Odro Asari, on his part, promised to help build the capacity of Assembly members, which would go a long way to improve their performances at the Assembly.
Human resources is another agenda that I have. We build the capacity of the Assembly members. When we came here, you can see what happened here. When you have people who are a little bit level-headed or educated, it changes the Assembly formation and everything. And it will be easier for them to understand the concept of the Assembly. And we are pleading that in the next elections of the Assembly members, people in the community should also look at the people that they are going to vote for them, so that they can see that the people that they are voting for them are people who are level-headed and they can decide for their communities.
The MC again reiterated his vision of revamping the Wenchi irrigation site, which would in turn provide jobs for the teeming unemployed youth through agriculture.
We know Wenchi have crop center, Wenchi have farm institute,
when she have state farms and other things. It seems that when we are saying we are talking about agriculture, when she's endowed with all these facilities. So it is my vision that the 500 acres, which has been idle for that very long period, should be revamped so that the youth in the municipality will be able to get jobs.
Anna Sabit, Joy News, Wenchi.
Now, the Center for Applied Research and Innovation in Supply Chain Africa, CARISCA, is spearheading an enhanced engagement with policymakers and industry players to improve their decision-making at the top level. Director of the Center, Professor Nathaniel Boso, says CARISCA will now produce policy briefs of their published research activities for dissemination in mainstream media to inform policy.
Instead of publishing academic papers in journals alone, we are now going to be producing what we call policy briefs. So short policy briefs that can be published in one of your the news outlets or in any kind of outlet that can easily be accessed by policymakers. Right? And of course, for the industry people too, we are going to be producing very soon several industry reports that we will publish for the industry people to also be reading and be able to make decisions that is based on evidence, empirical evidence, not guesswork. So this is how we look at the whole conversation. There should be a tripartite approach. Academia going to the industry and policymakers to understand the problems, and then we come back to research and then give back the insight to them to inform their decision-making process.
This year's summit is under the theme, How Africa Matters to Global Supply Chain. The event featured 3 topics: general supply chains, sectorial supply chains, and emerging issues in global supply chains. Professor Boso believes that the economy will grow if the government invests in the country's logistic infrastructure. Dr. Abdul Samad Muntaka, a senior technical advisor on agricultural supply at CARISCA, called for policies to enable farmers get value for their produce.
When they are produced, where do they pass? How can the farmers be put together? So you hear of farmer groups, you hear of societies. They are coming together to bring their produce together. Now we have to move it to the next level where we find them buyers. So we have aggregators who will normally go and lift these products. But they dictate the price to the farmers. So at the end of the day, the farmers are losers. Now we need to look for a structure that will allow the farmers to get a good price, to be able to get value for what they have produced, and also move the products to those who need it.
The Center for Applied Research and Innovation Supply Chain Africa, CARISCA, is a 5-year project in collaboration with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and the Arizona State University, with support from the USAID to build a supply chain management research center. Their main objective is to equip universities to provide best-in-class degree programs and training, facilitate research, engage stakeholders in best practices and policy changes that strengthen supply chains and increase the participation of women in supply chain management. More than 300 supply chain researchers and students from 40 countries participated in last year's summit. This year, more than 400 people registered for the event. Colleen Shea, first report, read to you.
And now the whole Municipal Assembly in the Volta region, with the support of some state and private institutions, has launched the Whole Expo 2022. The expo will promote tourism, real estate and harness investment opportunities to propel the growth of the local economy of the municipality.
The Whole Expo 2022 is slated from 29th August to 11th September 2022 at the Whole Jubilee Park. It would provide a platform to various business entities in real estate and as well promote tourism in the whole municipality. It is also expected to attract potential investors to the municipality, aiming to improve human resources and create jobs. Speaking at the media launch, the Home Municipal Chief Executive, Divine Borsen, detailed that the Assembly seeks to diversify the local economy by moving away from heavily relying on agriculture to harnessing potentials of tourism and the developing real estate industry.
This event, having been carefully thought through, is aimed at changing the face of the whole municipality to one which focuses on growth, development, and employment creation for our teeming youth. Our unique location, very friendly weather, flora and fauna resources present us with great potential for tourism takeoff.
The Member of Parliament for Host Central, Benjamin Kudu, underscored the significance of the expo and implored businesses and institutions to leverage digital computing technologies to improve their operations.
Transactions can be carried out using modern equipment. When you go to a shop, people use the ordering system and the delivery system, they cannot be mechanized. You don't have to be, doing things the same old way, taking pen and paper to write invoices, write receipts, and all those things. We should modernize our systems of business operations. It is very, very important.
The Chief Executive Officer of Adonai Estate Limited, Reverend Bright Eric Adonai, detailed that his company would take advantage of the expo to establish investment partnerships.
And as a player in the real estate industry, we believe that one of the things that can make development around this area is the real estate business, which I have actually started. And looking at this expo, I believe that a lot of investors may be interested in coming down to invest into real estate, and so we want to be the key sponsors in this expo, so that at least we can make some impact.
About 200 local, national and international exhibitors are expected to participate in the whole Expo 2022, which would attract thousands of patrons. The expo would showcase medical and educational tourism, tourist sites, and real estate potentials, among others, in the whole municipality. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Ho.
Thanks for your time. The show continues with Benjamin, joined by Samuel Kojo-Brace.
Well, thank you for staying with us. This is where we get into the papers and bring you the tidbits from the world of, well, the tabloids this morning. And we have some interesting things to talk about, the economy and more. But joining me, Samuel Kojo-Brace. Do you know every time I get to the Brace, sometimes Bruce comes to mind? I think I should start calling you Bruce Lee.
But I do have.
Do you do any higher?
Bruce Lee is the same. Bruce Lee, how?
What's up, back then in school, you were, Boy Scouts and Karateka.
I only joined the what do we call it? The cadets. And even that. When Scouts there. I mean, sometimes you there, then the instructor would say, fall like a tree, then pine. I did like for some time, no, Masa, I'm not meant for this, so I left.
That was that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll come back to that. But joining us now, Joshua Asamoah is a senior forecaster with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. He joins the conversation to give us a snippet of what to expect by way of the weather. Josh, a very good morning to you. Give us an idea of what we can expect today by way of the weather.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone watching us. So for the next 24 hours, areas in the southern portion of the country will see brighter conditions than we expect. We still expect cloudy conditions though, but it will be brighter. We'll get breaks of sunshine coming in. So we'll have temperatures slightly warmer than what we experienced yesterday. We're expecting around 31 to 32 degrees Celsius as the maximum temperature for today. But on the satellite image currently, we are still seeing some cloud developments to the east of the country. That's around northern Benin into northern Nigeria. It's quite weak, but because we are now going to get some sunshine, it will be able to rejuvenate this cloudy conditions there. And so we are expecting that areas in the northeast towards the Oti and parts of the Volta region, we'll be seeing some rainfall activities later this morning into the afternoon. For the western side of the northern sector, the upper west Savannah regions, the day will start quite bright. So we'll see sunny conditions from this morning into late morning towards the early parts of the afternoon. And then later, the clouds are expected to drift to those areas to also produce some rains over there. But then the impact of the rain will be quite low. If you can see on the Ghana map, the shading there, we are seeing green colors dominating for areas in the northern sector. So it means the impact the rain will have over the area will be quite low. For us in southern Ghana, we expect some moderate rainfall, especially over areas in the middle sector. So if you're around the eastern, the western, north, Ashanti regions, we're expecting some medium impact rainfall later this afternoon into the evening. But for coastal Ghana, it will basically be the cloudiness for the morning, breaks of sunshine coming in later. And then in the afternoon, we'll go back into cloudiness with some pockets of slight to moderate rainfall. So we are not expecting any high impact or medium impact weather for coastal Ghana, just the middle portion of the country. Northern Ghana will also have some low impact weather within the next 24 hours. But for tomorrow morning, we are expecting very reduced visibility in the early hours, between 5 and 8 a.m. We're expecting some poor visibility. So how far ahead we can see will be reduced significantly. And so road users are advised to be very cautious when they're applying the routes in the early hours of the morning. Some mist and fog patches are expected in the early hours. So that will make visibility quite poor. And so we should be quite careful when you're using the route. So basically today, we still expect the cloudy conditions to persist, but it will be brighter than what we experienced yesterday.
Well, that sounds like quite a plan by way of the weather. And it looks like another good day without too much, what would I even call it, apprehension about the rain. Thank you so much, Joshua Sama, for joining us with the latest by way of the weather. And do have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Josh is actually a senior forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency. But let's come into the studio with my colleague here who is not a forecaster. He only forecasts money. The only thing he knows how to forecast is money. Please, have you seen any money heading in my direction? Like any big, what do I say, a big kwacha, kudi?
Even if I had seen it, or even if I have seen it, I would say no.
Why?
Why would I allow money to get to you? Charlie, it has to be diverted to me.
I thought I had a friend in this gentleman. Apparently,
then you didn't.
I had misfired.
Yeah, you have.
But I wish you plenty money.
Amen. Thank you.
I wish you all of God's the choicest blessings. Charlie, good to have you.
Good to have you, man.
All right, so let's talk money. Let's stay with money. Former President John Dramani Mahama has been talking about our economy. And he says, sack the finance minister, that if he didn't bear the name Uforiata, maybe if he weren't your cousin or something like that, he still wouldn't be at post. And that if you look at our borrowing and everything we've done, the writing is on the wall. He says, look, there's nothing ignominious about going the way of the IMF. If you are in dire straits, you need to do what you need to do to get the dollars, the liquidity to shore up the economy. He says we must be fiscally disciplined. I mean, I know you followed all of what he's been saying. What do you make of the former president? Because he also had his economic, woes in his time. They were able to weather the storm, but it cost them. I mean, back then in 2016, the economy was one of the major matters, corruption and all of that, but the economy was big. What's your take?
I mean, going to the IMF was one thing that the MPP harped on to come to power. That because you were a bad manager, you had to run to the IMF and they had to pull brakes on a lot of the social interventions that you were doing, and so you couldn't do them any longer. That is why, they convince Ghanaians that they have what it takes to manage the economy and create jobs and implement social interventions without anybody's order that we should stop. And so they won't be going to the IMF. I think that's one of the reasons why this government is dragging its feet in deciding on going to the IMF, because it will be like, well, but you said this guy is not good because he went to the IMF. Today, you said you have the men I've also gone back to it. So what's the difference between you and the...
So the politics.
Exactly.
We played politics with it. It's just like the fuel price thing.
That is what
we all know the challenges, but if you play politics with it, it's like the exchange rate. If you play politics with it, the politics will come back to haunt you.
Yeah, it'll come back to haunt you. So I think that's what I see. That Ben, I said you are not good because you've gone to the IMF, and today I come to assume the same position and decide to go the same way that you went that I criticized you. So that is what I see at play here. But yes, the former president, he's been there before. He's seen it, and he knows what is to be done to turn things around. So yeah, he's made this call, but there's one thing making the call, and there's one thing that call being taken. So I don't know what the president is thinking. Probably they see the books, they know the back end that we don't know. They see what's coming in, they see what's going out, and they feel that they are on the right path. That's what they feel.
But you know something I've noticed? More and more people, I mean, if you look over the last few months, a lot of the people who are saying, oh, let's wait, don't go the way of the IMF, are now saying, let's go.
But that's
Bokpin is there. I mean, so many of them are now saying, look, where it's going. Because, you know, for example, our foreign reserves, we've bitten through them quite, you know, not mid-sized, hugely, since January, from $6 billion plus dollars in reserves. Now we're at somewhere under $4 billion, and it's getting critical. At the same time, the Eurobonds market is not a place we can go to currently. And some are even saying that if we would have gone the way of the IMF, the windows, when we should have gone, was maybe late last year. That now is becoming a bit tighter.
Okay.
You will not get exactly the best deals and all of that, though we know that going to the IMF, of course, is not like borrowing on the international market. But it appears if we don't act swiftly, whatever the action is going to be, because the e-levy, look, today we're going to be talking about it, but from everything we're seeing, may not be delivering what we expected. It may be delivering as little as 10 or less percent.
The reason they didn't
it means we're in dire straits.
The reason they didn't go earlier, as you said, last year, is because they were thinking the e-levy was going to be the game changer. And everybody in government, and even not everybody, majority of the people in government felt that e-levy, if passed, is going to be a game changer. You know, they were suspecting around 600 million, but it was only able to raise around 6 million or 60 million.
60 million.
So
it's delivering just about. I mean, yesterday, I don't know whether it was Fides Kwachofosu, who will be joining us on the show, by the way, who was saying that I think 60 million in the first month and a drop in the bucket in the second, which is June. I mean, all of us should be concerned because what that means is already when we budget, we don't have that lump sum of money. It's basically money we don't even have. When we said we're cutting down by 30%, it was 30% we didn't even have. You get it? So moving forward, how is the country going to run? Because you must always think of it. Your family is like a microcosm of what we see. You manage things. You ensure that, you know, together with your partner and all of that. It's the same thing, but on a much larger scale. 31 million Ghanaians. And it's not a joke. If things don't go well, have you followed what is happening in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, but you see, Ben, this economy, I hope that we are all learning because look, this discussion we are having, if care is not taken, would have change in government. We'll still come back to talk about some of these things. Because what didn't we talk about during the era of the NDC, led by John Mahama?
Which is part of the problem.
Yes.
You see, part of our problem too, that I see, and I'm going to put this bluntly, I think part of the problem is that we are not spoiled for choice. You see in France, for example, how they've, you know, so to speak, constricted around the neck of Emmanuel Macron. He's won all right. But in terms of getting his way in doing certain things in the legislative body, he's constrained because of the gains the other parties have made. You would look at some entities in the media that back then were alone. I'll not mention any names. But then others sprung up, private enterprise, and then they had to, you know, start upping their game. It's always that way. When it's only a two-horse race, you have the two of them feeling,
no. But that is the problem. Because
I agree. That's the problem.
Because if you guys are,
if there was a choice, they would want to do, they would strive to do better.
Choice is good. But if the two guys were interested in building Ghana, you should come to the table with, you know, something that would leave your name in the minds of the people for a very long time. Why? How many years has Nkrumah been gone? Till today. Right. People do see him as the finest we've had.
Right.
People do see President John Kufuor.
That man's foresight was just amazing. You know, now we're struggling. Let's talk Greek because you are the silos he was putting up. Look at us today in the 21st century, 2022, 65 years after independence.
In the Western,
we're struggling with grain. When Ukraine, catches a cold, the rest of us are we've got a hay fever.
In the Western region, that silo has been sold to a hotelier.
Oh, you what?
They've built a hotel around it, and that same person has built some accommodation for his staff around the silo. Who sold that place? Whose decision was it for us to lease?
When was this put up? Do you have an idea?
Oh, that hotel was, I'm sure, like, if I'm not wrong, getting to 10 years.
10 years?
Yes, I'm sure. Getting to 10 years.
At least we can pin it down to a certain administration.
Okay.
Because so many things happen. No. In this country,
then we have to
try to
get it right.
Anything that happens, whether it's someone building on a waterway, someone building in a place they shouldn't be building, or whatever, there is an administration in charge. We should lay the blame at their footsteps.
So you see,
at their doorstep.
These two guys, the NDC, the MPP, should look at themselves in the mirror and understand that where we are is as a result of their actions and inactions. Because the MPP comes to the table, will be blaming the NDC that he didn't do this, he didn't do that. The NDC comes again, will be blaming. So look, it's time we shelved those ones.
A game of passing the buck. You did worse. You did this. My statistic here is better. In the meantime, the people are suffering. Do you remember back then? Nurses are suffering. Teachers are suffering.
Oh, yes.
Are they doing better today? The teachers are crying. Give us cola. You see the problem? It's not about the political party. It's about the thing we keep doing to ourselves. This ping pong, they play us, table tennis, then this one play,
So it's still the political party. Because they are the ones who are doing this to us. The NDC, the MPP, they are the same people doing this to us. Today it's the MPP. Look at how things have gone. I don't know where we went that from 2017, where if you look at the data, we're doing so well. 2018, we're doing so well. Then all of a sudden, this is where we are.
And you see, when you tell them, I listened to Dr. Stephen Amwa yesterday talking about the fact that, UK, this it. Sometimes it boggles my mind when they make such assertions. These people are borrowing at what percentage? Sometimes less than under 1%. You want to compare yourself to them. America, do you know it's borrowing? It's in the trillions. Yet, what factor of its GDP? Do you get it? You must make comparisons with real life examples. What is your GDP? And what percentage of it is you are consumed by compensations, workers, public sector, and what? Debt servicing. Two things take away practically everything. So you don't even have money to take care of school feeding, to do the most basic things.
Yeah.
And you want to compare yourself to someone who has been there, done that. You see, this is where sometimes we get it wrong. We get it wrong. You don't need to be a nuclear physicist to see some of these things.
Look, Ben, sometimes I think that for us as Ghanaians, we also have to tell the politicians, the political elite, that enough is enough.
That's the problem.
We have to look at them.
We don't have the courage to look them in the face and tell them enough is enough, because we've made ourselves, I'm from the Volta region. I should vote NDC. I'm from Otiye, NDC. Is the NDC delivering for you? I am from the Ashanti region. I'm from Kumasi. I'm from Amakum. I have to vote for the MPP. Are they delivering for you?
Look,
let's get into the papers. Let's check out the Ghanaian Times.
Anyway, now, mad rush for Ghana card as today marks start of BOG directive to use ID cards only for all bank transactions. And it comes with a photograph of a lot of people queuing to get a card. 2,000 Adankwame residents said to benefit from community mining scheme. It comes with a photograph of the Deputy Minister of Mining in charge of, Deputy Minister of Lands.
When he said Minister of Mining,
in charge of mining.
Hey, he creates new minister. Ministers don't do something that we beg you. Don't add any new ministers.
But I think Mrekudika is doing well in that regard. So that's it. Let's see how that goes. Probably we need to assess the impact of the ones they've commissioned over the years.
Which ones?
The community mining schemes. They've launched a lot of it. We need to find out how
are they
those are doing.
But that's one thing we're really not good at. Looking at things retrospectively. It's like the tree planting exercise we did last year. We claim, Mr. President said, 80-85% of them had. Where did we conduct that survey? What are the statistics? You know, it's important not for any mischievous reasons. So it's important so we know where we were,
and
where we have got to,
and where
we hope to get to. But there's no such accountability, not in terms of the financing, not in terms of which plants were we planting, mahogany, and
we do
have, where did we?
We do have department for monitoring and evaluation in these ministries. I think these are things they have to be doing. They have to be telling us that, oh, we planted 1,000. Out of that, maybe 800 did well, 200 didn't. Then, like you said, we can follow with them. But if we don't get it, it's quite difficult. Now, police gunned down for armed robbers on Bekwai Fomina Highway. And that story is on page 3 of the Ghanaian Times. It says, 4 persons suspected to be robbers were on Wednesday killed in a shootout with the police on the Bekwai Fomina Highway in Ashanti region. A gang of 5 persons engaged the police in a shootout during a robbery, and 4 of them died. And one of the robbers escaped. A source at the Ashanti Regional Police Command confirmed the incident, but did not give any details and directed the Ghanaian Times to contact the police headquarters in Accra. So that's the details there. 4 persons are gone. At the 40th Remembrance Service, GBA urges public to have confidence in justice system. So that the Ghana Bar Association there, saying that you and I have to trust the justice system.
Okay, Doc, let's get into some other papers. Daily Graphic, we'll work within some 6-7 minutes. Weedy median being cleared at last. And, you know, sometimes it's interesting. You know, we handled that matter here yesterday. Based on Emmanuel Bright Kweku's report from Kumasi in the Ashanti region. We went hard on that from the standpoint of the Ghana Highways Authority and the National Road Safety Authority. And today, yeah, man. Who say man no day?
Monday,
So new GJA executive takes office on page 13. I heard of a stay as far as the president was concerned. Supplement on mining industry.
It was an application to injunct him.
Right.
But once that application had not been granted, then it means that
that definitely
they'll
proceed. Don't place premium on private gains, Ochehene tells African leaders. I nearly said something, but you let me leave it, because sometimes our chiefs do, some of them. I'm not referencing the Ochehene, but you know all this galamsey and the spoliation of our environment and all of that. A lot of the chiefs are very integrated in the system.
Because because the lands are theirs. So, and I'm sure they know everything that happens on them. All or majority of the things. So once you are the chief of a certain place and you hear that this is happening, if you are not into it, you move in there and get it corrected.
Right.
If you don't, we'll blame you when the thing turns sour. So our chief should really be up and doing some of them.
Let me just do these quickly. So Anglo Gold Ashanti Ghana partner in development. Interestingly, I was reading about Anglo Gold Ashanti in Colombia. Yeah, Colombia. And you know the new vice president, the black one, first time. And some interesting dynamics in Colombia. You know, it's interesting that I'm mentioning Anglo Gold Ashanti and I'm mentioning Colombia. Go and read. But the DRC buries Lumumba's remains after 61 years. I couldn't, go past this
that story.
You remember Patrice Lumumba fighting for his country. And the Belgians were not happy. They used, just as with Nkrumah, they used the same Congolese. Got this man. And you know what they did to him after killing him? They didn't even want his body so that people would set up a shrine or anything. Dissolved his body in acid. And one of them took one of his teeth as a trophy. That is the only thing left, because in Congo, if there are no mortal remains to bury, it leaves the family hanging. So that is what's the tooth that the Belgians are returning to the Congolese. Some of these people, these foreigners, to have done stuff like terrible stuff on the continent.
Yes.
And they ought to be ashamed of themselves. I have many friends who are from there, but some of the things, atrocities in the past. How do you dissolve you've killed the person, you dissolve the body in acid.
But do you know...
Take the tooth as a trophy.
Where I'm from, a hunter. I'm sure you've heard the story of one of our kings, Bedubonso II, whose head was taken to the Netherlands and stored in a formaldehyde. For
formaldehyde, so you would see
for over 100 years.
Look at that.
Yes, you killed the man, beheaded him, and took the head to the Netherlands to be kept in a laboratory somewhere. And it was the work of a researcher who brought the matter up at the tail end of the Kufuor administration. So when Atamos took over, then they were able to repatriate the head here. But you ask, there has to be some compensations when you are returning things like that. Because you brought shame to us, you brought shame to the family, you brought shame to the region he's from, you brought shame to the country, and you're only bringing the head just like that. How? And I feel there should be ways that we have to bring back these issues and let the whites pay.
When they are returning the Benin bronzes that they stole, let them pay. When they are returning whatever, recently they were returning an artwork to Cameroon.
Yes. Yeah.
Pay. I mean, they should pay reparations because they've done too much damage.
Exactly.
But at the same time, sometimes I am, because people are too eager to owe reparation. What are we also doing for ourselves? Do you remember what Nkrumah said? The black man is capable of managing his own affairs. Unfortunately, our leaders have proven otherwise. They've proven that we are not capable of managing our own affairs. Look at us on the continent.
Yeah, but that notwithstanding, it still doesn't make up for what they did, and they have to pay. It doesn't. You bring it.
In fact,
if we mismanage it,
you know why sometimes I'm not so much for all this reparation and the rest? Because there's no reparation that can pay for what they did.
Exactly. But you, for example, like the head of our Tunfor, which has been brought to Ghana, imagine you tell us you're going to set up probably a university or a research center in his memory. Tunfor Bedubonso Research Center, you know, something that generations yet unborn can come, go there and benefit from it, and then they will know the history associated with it. But if you just bring the head and it's kept somewhere, that's something that we need to discuss. That's something that we need to let them understand that we won't take it. You dissolve someone's whole body in acid and take the tooth, and you just brought the tooth back to the people, nothing else. No.
Anyway,
something must happen.
Let's wrap quickly on some of the headlines.
Daily Guide, Mahama punches Nana on economy.
Is he a boxer now?
No, he's not, but yes. When the words are heavy, what does that do? It hits you hard, and that's a punch.
It reminds me of Zoom Zoom Nelson and the fight with McGuigan that never happened. We'll leave that for later.
When they were, is it 40?
I think 20, it was Barry McGuigan or something.
About 2010 or so, he fought one of his fiercest rivals. You remember, the Australian?
Oh, George Fenech.
Yes, you remember that fight? They fought, they were,
I'll beat you like father likes. Hey, but that Fenech fighter. Left Fenech very badly.
Yeah.
I think he went into a coma
Nelson is Nelson.
He's the best we've ever had on the continent, not just in Ghana.
So Mahama punches Nana on the economy. Last time someone was telling me that the MPP has probably made Mahama look like a saint. Probably. Yeah, because if you look at what's happening. Nana Bawumia celebrate murdered judges. 2 corpses in critical condition. New GJ executives take office. But you know the government will also disagree with you. Because they say Mahama didn't meet, what do we call it, pandemic like the COVID and then also the Russia.
He had Ebola. He had Dumso.
But they say Ebola.
Those were pandemics in their
own right. But they say Ebola didn't come to Ghana.
I disagree with those excuses that people give. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. That's all.
Okay. All right then. Okay.
Republic Press. Police allegedly involved in protocol recruitment scam granted 300,000 Ghana cedi bail. National Cathedral Secretariat rakes in over 31 million Ghana cedis. Board of Trustees. I did the calculation yesterday. It's just about over, was it 3 or 5 million? It's a drop in the bucket looking at the cost of the thing. So I don't know what we have to celebrate.
Okay.
Mahama stages comeback. I'll buy my own motorcade when I'm voted as president in 2024. Guess who?
Kennedy.
Ascent Central Member of Parliament.
He has what it takes to do that. Okay, but let's celebrate the Public Enterprises Ministry and SIGA. Yesterday they did the Public Enterprises League table.
And the one they want to have awards for.
Oh, yes. I think that even as
when... But when we publish the table and you see, say, SMSC is number 1, is that not way enough?
But that's it. That's what they are doing.
No, they want to have an award scheme, an awards, another...
No, it's just to say thank you for what you've done. That's it.
With whose money? Whose taxpayers' money?
But why? You can source for fun.
I don't know, because state-owned enterprises are not performing.
Let me congratulate the TDC Company Limited, the Tema Development Corporation or so. They were the specified entity of the year Yes,
right.
yeah, TDC.
Well, the TDC, I've known of them for a long time.
They won it. DVLA also won something. FDA won 2 awards. I think the water resources also did. Oh, it was a beautiful.
Did I not win anything?
Why? Are you an SE? You're not a specified entity in any way. But it was good. What I see, you're not a specified entity. Why?
Me myself, I am an entity in.
Have you signed a performance contract with the state interest and governance authority?
I've not signed any.
Good, exactly. All these entities have signed a performance contract with them, and then they look at they evaluate those performance, and then they give scores to it, and then rank. So that will work.
Thanks for the reminder.
I've reminded you, yes.
To wrap with the finder, 29 rioters to face court on Monday as police commit to arrest all other perpetrators. But let's do this right before sports. My condolences to the Impiban family of Nsawam Road Church of Christ and SCC Wager on the loss of the father and husband, Kwame Impiban. I wish you well as you start preparations to lay him to rest next week, Saturday. Nyame and Kamuni Naamoho. It's from my very able producer, Ekosam, and from all of us here at the Multimedia Group. God be with you. Up next, sports. Welcome back on the AM show. We're grateful that you took the time to stay with us. I'm sure right about now you'd have been expecting me to share my blunt thoughts with you. It will come, but we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, we're going to try to do that. We're going to be discussing on what former President Mahama was sharing with all of us yesterday on the back of the economy. So, what is happening to the economy? Is it on life support like the former president paints the picture? And what is the way forward? Do we go the way of the IMF like he's proposing? How do we bring about more fiscal discipline? And should we sack our finance minister, the Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Ken Ofori-Atta? The former president suggests it's just because of his last name, Ofori-Atta, the compound name, that he's still at post. Well, to join us dilate on all of those matters this morning, we have a former Deputy Minister of Information, Felix Kwakye Ofosu, in the studio here with us. Thank you very much. Communications, I beg your pardon, Deputy Minister.
Well, I was first Deputy Minister for Information, so
before you, so you take both.
I am.
But what we all know you for is communications. So
that was the latest position I held before.
Yeah. But thank you for joining.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
It's been a while. I don't remember the last time.
Yes.
It's been.
I think I was here either earlier this year or late last year.
Right.
I do not recall exactly when, but we spoke about emerging developments at the time. So it's a pleasure to be back.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's talk about the state of the economy. There's a whole lot to talk about, and former President Mahama has been digging into exactly that. But let's set aside a bit what the former president says. If I asked you, what is the state of the economy for you as a Ghanaian, forget all the positions you've held, what would you say?
Well, I think that this is one question that almost everybody in Ghana can answer off the top of their heads. Even a child should be able to answer this because it is felt, it is palpable. You can cut through it with a knife. It is obvious that our economy is in shambles. For many people, they use micro indicators to assess the health of the economy. In other words, what you find on the market, how your pocket feels like, your ability to afford basic necessities of life, your ability to pay your bills. That is how they assess the health of the economy. And if we were to use that, it is quite obvious that the economy is in complete disarray. Times are simply too hard. We are at unprecedented levels with regards to fuel prices, rent, transportation prices, food prices. People can barely afford one meal a day. And life is really, really hard for many, many people. Unemployment is on the...
This is what puts the economy in disarray?
Oh, it is.
I mean, because I mean, look, some of these things, they come and they go.
No,
it's not a permanent situation.
I don't think
do you remember the time when, now Vice President and, then
standing with Nanado. Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia said, nurses are suffering, teachers are suffering.
I don't think that we've been anywhere near this.
People were suffering in this country.
Well,
at that time.
Well, there has never been.
When your government was in office.
There has never been a time where there has not been economic difficulties. It's the very nature of.
So that's exactly the point.
No, but I would explain exactly what I mean. The very nature of our economy has meant that since independence, there has always been difficulty because we've not been able to achieve the level of development economically that we would wish for. But in the last 40 years at least, everybody who has lived in this country and is of age can testify that we've not had this sort of hardships before. That really is the crux of the issue. So we are not talking about regular economic problems stemming from our state of development, but we are talking about unprecedented levels of hardships stemming from serious economic decay and mismanagement. So we need to distinguish the two positions. It is true that Dr. Bawumia made a song and a dance of the economic situation in 2016, but it was only for partisan gain. On hindsight, we know that he was engaged in mere bluster. He didn't have any exceptional skill to turn anything around. And in fact, he has worsened the situation that he met. So the economy is in very terrible shape. Everybody feels it. There's no dispute. There's unanimity. Government itself is not able to see that things are better than they took over. So I don't think that there's any need to haggle over what the reality is. But what is more worrying, my brother, is that this government does not appear to have any plan to address the problem. It is one thing to have the problem, and then it's another to see concrete efforts, clear efforts aimed at addressing it so that all of us can come out of this mess. There does not appear to be any plan. There's complete nonchalance. It's like
the economy hasn't collapsed. We've not witnessed what has happened in Sri Lanka or Syria or some other
We are not very far away. We are not very far away from what is happening in Sri Lanka.
What makes you say that? Is it because of the state of our reserves?
I read a report only yesterday. You know, the IMF's chief economist, who is also a professor of economics at Harvard, said that there are a number of countries that will be going the Sri Lankan way in a matter of months if corrective measures are not taken. He mentioned Laos. Ghana was mentioned. And then...
I mean, if you followed Steve Hanks of the Johns Hopkins University...
Exactly, and he's been...
The last time he posted anything, as far as our currency was concerned, just to make the... He referred to it as a junk currency.
Absolutely.
As one of the...
So,
but I mean, all of these are still not enough to say that...
We are on the verge of collapse. There's no dispute about it. Indeed, let me give you a few figures to buttress my point. You see... Since the beginning of last year, right after the elections, because of election-related expenditure, we had what we call fiscal slippages. In other words, we had simply lived beyond our means. So we had incurred a huge deficit and quite some sizable debts. So you find that our fiscal deficit was higher than expected, and all indicators were pointing south. And then we have a problem with our public debt, which is so big that what it takes to service it is simply strangulating us. So, for instance, take this year. You know, if you look at the budget, the government said
the public debt and compensations.
Yes, if you look at the the budget for 2022, this government said that for the first quarter of this year, between January and March, they were expecting to raise 14.6 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenue. At the end of the quarter, they were able to raise 12.8 billion Ghana cedis. Now, even if we were to overlook the difference, we paid for debt service to the tune of 13.9 billion. In other words, all the money that was collected for the first quarter of this year was not enough to pay for debt services. So government had to borrow
in excess
in order to be able to service our debt.
So we basically borrowed to pay another borrower.
Exactly. And we're not even paying all the principal. We're paying interest and then a bit of the principal. Mind you, compensation has not come. Statutory payments has not come, and other payments. Now, because of this, government barely has money to do anything else. If you look at the same budget, 2022, they said the first quarter of this year, they were going to pay 1.3 billion Ghana cedis to contractors who they owed. They were only able to pay 38 million Ghana cedis. Again, they said they would clear other arrears to the tune of 285 million. They could not pay a dime. So not even one cedi was released because government did not have the money. Now look at the agri sector. I want to illustrate the impact that is having on our country. Look at the agri sector. You know that since 2020, this government has owed to the tune of 485 million Ghana cedis to fertilizer suppliers.
Right.
Indeed, there's one company called Idisal.
Yeah.
They supply the northern part of this country with fertilizer.
I think it's over 200 million.
Over 200 million. How is it supposed to survive? The business is collapsing. Seed suppliers are also owed 205 million Ghana cedis. They cannot pay school feeding caterers. Contractors are owed over 8 billion Ghana cedis. Indeed, for 3 straight years, they've not been able to print textbooks for basic school pupils. LEAP beneficiaries. Indeed, we had to get a bailout of 40 million Ghana cedis from the World Bank about 2 months ago before we could pay LEAP beneficiaries who are the lowest of the low in our country in terms of economic capacity and who depend
But again, I'll just point to you the fact that while you mention all of these are not things that are new.
But
these are not things that are new in terms of owing. I mean, yesterday, for example, I was interacting with the leadership of the GHA, the Ghana Highways Authority, the National Road Safety Authority. You know, now the medians. I mean, on the back of that story, we see in today's Daily Graphic that medians are going to be cleared and all of that. These are all contracts. At some point, government owes.
Yes.
Whether it is the buffer
of course, it has never
company or whatever.
I do not know of any.
You always owe to some extent.
I do not know of any.
What makes this different?
What makes it different is the gravity.
The gravity.
The gravity of it.
So the amount of debt.
The amount of debt is simply mind-boggling. Indeed, in Cocoa Board alone, we hear that they owe about 30 billion Ghana cedis. The state-owned enterprises put together have over 20 billion Ghana cedis on their books. And these are monies that have not even been added to our public debt. Look at the inflation rate. It's 27.6%. This is the highest in the West African sub-region. If you look at government's own budget statements again, in the first quarter, they projected that they will make a deficit of 2.2. They made 2.6. So they've slipped by 0.4 percentage points. And we expect...
Marginal.
It's not marginal. Now, if you analyze it, we are talking in excess of 10% deficit. And when you have a deficit that is above 10%, there is serious trouble.
We are not analyzing it.
No, but it shows a trend. And because
the point I'm trying to make is that it does not necessarily indicate that at the end of the year, because
they have slipped here, they have to make up in the previous quarter, in the next quarter. And in a bid to do that, they will slip further. Again, look at our debt to GDP ratio, for instance. It's over 80%. Our public debt is now in excess of 400 billion. Again, look at our currency. Do you know why our currency is depreciating?
Tell me.
It is because non-resident holders of our bonds are pulling out like crazy.
Non-resident holders of our what?
What happens is that when you float bonds on the domestic market, there are people who do not live in Ghana but buy some.
Definitely.
They buy that in dollars. So it also helps to shore up our reserves. Do you know that the share of bonds held by non-resident investors has dropped from 35% to 15%. And in the last 1 year alone,
what accounts for that?
Because they don't have confidence in our economy. They fear that government may default. In the last 1 year alone, our reserves has dwindled by $1.7 billion. And that is what is putting pressure on our local currency, and it keeps on depreciating. And as we speak, it has topped 8 cedis to $1 in many, many forest bureaus and other forest.
When I checked yesterday, 8.10. But defaulting isn't
no.
It's not a death sentence. Even Russia is defaulting.
But you cannot.
For the first time since 1918.
They are grave.
Even Russia is defaulting.
We must distinguish between the fortunes of countries that are developed. We are not in the league of Russia. And I hear people say, "Oh, yes, the UK owes, the US owes."
I have my own take on that. I know because
when they borrow,
the quantum of
it's not even the quantum of borrowing. You see, when they borrow
and the percentage.
When they borrow at under 1%.
And that's what I'm saying. The percentage at which they
use only a fraction of their revenue to service debt. So they have so much money to spend on other things, such that they are even able to extend some to us as aid. We cannot get enough to even pay for interest payments alone in the first quarter of this.
And that is what is complicating. That is what is complicating the situation for us, because we are getting 4% upwards and all of that. And I mean, looking at the lowest rate
now, our bonds are sitting at over 20% on the domestic front.
Yes.
Our international bonds.
It depends on where we are going.
No, our international bonds also sell for above 20%. We borrow at 7% for commercial loans. You know the recent syndicated loan that President Mahama spoke about. The
1 billion?
Yes, the interest is 7.29%. That means that it will cost us $438 million.
Right. I've heard
to borrow 1 billion.
That.
So clearly we are in trouble. And what worries me the most is the lack of a plan to address this. You see?
But you say the lack of a plan.
Yes, there's a clear lack of a plan.
But the economy isn't on autopilot, else we wouldn't even be here. Look at what is happening in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Else we wouldn't even be here.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's curious because the ruling administration, the MPP, our government, has tried to push through the e-levy. They've tried different mechanisms, and your side in Parliament was the same end, hobbling them, fettering them, preventing them from getting that.
Because we knew that those prescriptions were not going to address the problem.
But they were going to help. No, they were going to help alleviate the situation.
First of all, they were hedging their fortunes, on unpredictable behavior. There was no certainty about how much we were going to get from e-levy.
Was there any certainty when VAT was going to be passed?
Yes, because...
Was there certainty?
Yes, there was certainty to the extent that whether you liked it or not, in the course of the day, you are going to have to buy something to eat, drink. Any service that you procure in the course of the day attracts VAT. So there was some level of certainty. And that is how come today VAT is contributing in excess of 20 billion Ghana cedis to our tax revenue. But the same cannot be said about Momo. You can decide that rather than send Momo, you call whoever you want to send it to come for the money. And as people are doing now, they are finding innovative ways to sidestep the system. So you could not predict that. But the point that we made when they introduced the e-levy discussion was that it was not going to be the panacea. Apart from the uncertainty and unpredictability, even if you had that 6 billion and added it to your revenue, it was still not going to get you out of the mess because it did not address the problem. You see, the problem we have, and as President Mahama indicated yesterday, is not that we don't have enough to spend. The problem we have is that whatever we get is being swallowed by unsustainable debt servicing. So in order to address the problem, you don't pile on taxes and keep on increasing the suffering of your people. You address the debt. Now, how do you address it? There's been talk of IMF program. You see, the IMF program must be clarified. And it is important that we remove these misconceptions. The MPP itself demonized the IMF. But the IMF, they are not demons. They don't have horns and tails. They are not holding a pitchfork. What they simply do is to insist that you comply with the tenets of fiscal discipline. Basically, you don't live outside your means. So
some economists have told us that we're already meeting some of those targets.
No, it's not true.
Already meeting
first of all, we don't even have
It's not going to change much when we go to the IMF. Though I agree that they will instill more fiscal discipline.
First of all,
and when there's a big brother watching you, to whom you are accountable, there are certain things you will do.
There's an issue of the balance of payment support that they will give you, which come at very concessionary rates. So you can shore up your reserves. Your currency,
what you would have had to pay,
your currency
you get to save on that
and then you pay minimal costs. But fiscal discipline and fiscal consolidation, which simply means that you align your expenditure with your revenue, is not sufficient to get us out of this mess because it does not address the debt problem. What will address the debt problem is what President Mahama spoke about: debt restructuring. What that simply means is that you...
That reminds me of structural adjustment.
Yeah, that one was to do with...
No, I know.
Now, what that simply means is that you can get your interest payments deferred. So you say, okay, within 2 or 3 years or 5 years, I'm not in a position to pay my interest to the full extent that I should. So give me a haircut. First of all, reduce the interest and then defer it for me. Let me start paying you in 5 years. What they will do is that they will simply add what you should have paid as interest to your debt, but then they will give you some space. So imagine that this year, for instance, we are supposed to pay about 50 billion Ghana cedis in debt servicing. Imagine that we can even get 20 billion out of that as savings. Government will be able to pay fertilizer suppliers. Government will be able to pay school feeding caterers. Government will be able to pay contractors. They will be able to print textbooks, and then they will be able to invest in productive areas of the economy to create jobs for the youth. So an IMF program which does not come with debt restructuring or some form of reprofiling of our debt and getting some fiscal space from the deferment of our interest payments will not result in the kind of benefits that we derive as a country. But the problem is that this government has placed political posturing above pragmatism. My brother, they should have pursued an IMF program right after the elections because it was apparent then that we were in trouble. But they didn't want to do it.
2020?
Let's say early 2021. Because after elections, government had to be formed. So let's say by first quarter of 2021, they should have gone to the IMF. Egypt has gone to the IMF.
But we are just practically scraped out of an IMF program.
But then,
wasn't it too early? I mean, if your party, the NDC, were in power then, would you have advised that they go back to the IMF so quickly?
Lucy, we wouldn't have been in that mess in the first place because you need to check our numbers. In 2016, there was an election, but we did not spend beyond our means. We had a deficit of 6.1.
Well, at least I remember former President Mahama had made some promises about, because we know in every electoral year there's huge spending.
Of course.
He had made some promises about trying to tone it down. Even that was a bit high, but it was not like unprecedented figures we have seen.
First of all, you are allowed up to 5%. You are allowed that. But we made 6.1, which is not too wide of the mark. So it was manageable. And that's how come we didn't have the kind of problems we have today. Indeed, as of 2016, we spent only 10.6 billion servicing our debt, which was less than 30% of our revenue. So there was fiscal space, and that's how come we could invest in various sectors of the economy. We did it, our debt to GDP ratio was under 57%. Our debt was just 120 billion. Today it's 400 billion. So we wouldn't have gotten into the situation that this government found itself in 2020 or 2021 after the elections. But then again, it is a scathing indictment on them that after all the gains that we made, do you know that when they came into power in 2017, they benefited from the larger chunk of the 939 million that the IMF was supposed to give us under the extended credit facility. We got about 300, they got 600. And then we managed to bring the fiscal situation under control. So all the indices were well aligned. And if they had managed things prudently, they should have built on the foundation that we've laid.
Is that not contrary to what the MPP, the picture that you painted when they came into office, that you had left them a big mess. In fact, an economic abyss that they now had to fill. In fact, I remember the rhetoric that we now have to level up before we even think of building upon.
You see, first of all, they inherited a relatively better, much better fiscal situation. Our deficit was not unsustainable. Our debt was not unsustainable. They had some monies that they inherited. Indeed, they inherited $200 million in the sinking fund. There was money in the heritage fund.
Tepe mentioned that in my interaction.
There was 600 million in the heritage fund. They had some money that we had set aside in the stabilization fund, which came in handy when COVID struck. So we left them. There was money in the ESLA account, which they eventually went to securitize and get more loans upfront. So what has happened is total mismanagement. And whilst they were at it, they were peddling falsehood after falsehood after falsehood. But at a point, these falsehoods catch up with you. Now look at...
You talk about these falsehoods, but let's look at the gains supposedly we've made. Look, you can talk about 1D, 1F. You can talk about One Village, One Dam. You can talk about free SHS. You can talk about what they are doing, the LEAP program. There are so many flagship programs that we can speak of, which they've given us, programs that you could not deliver. Free SHS.
But that is not true. You see, one of the other problems that we have is that this government believes too much in propaganda. You see, all their policies are driven by electoral gain. It is not, the policies are not designed.
But if the policies are good and they are still,
you see,
what would you call them?
You see, policy
populist.
You see, you must be.
It doesn't matter.
You must be far-sighted in policy making. You see, the programs that you churn out must resolve specific problems. You understand the point I'm making? The programs that you churn up must stand the test of time. They should be self-sustaining. Which of these programs are self-sustaining? None. They spoke about One Village, One Dam. Where are the dams? Indeed, was it even wise to promise a dam in every village in this country, in the northern part of this country? You didn't need a dam in every village in this, in the northern part of this country, but they promised it.
But that's not what the implementation means. It doesn't mean everyone is going to.
That is what is indeed. But when you tell me One Village, One Dam, what does it mean? What we needed were some quality dams that will address the problem of irrigation. But you don't engage in wholesale propaganda, parrot and sing slogans that have no meaning in terms of real benefit for the people. Again, you want to implement programs like free SHS. You do not guarantee sustainability. And in the end, you throw education into deeper mess than you met it. Now, the academic calendar has become so erratic that government itself is not able to communicate effectively with parents as to how the academic calendar will run. Today, they are not able to provide textbooks. Look at the situation where we have focused on SHS education. We say we are running free SHS, and yet we cannot print textbooks for pupils at basic school. The last time I read that they were spending about 38 million Ghana cedis printing free SHS t-shirts. Meanwhile, you have not been able to print textbooks for basic school pupils. So there's clear misalignment, even in the education sector. Look at the situation with the tertiary system. How lecturers continue to breathe down the neck of government for improvements in their conditions of service, because those conditions are so poor that they are not adequately motivated to offer their best and ensure that there's quality education delivery at that level. So you look at this government, and every single program they churned out does not have sustainability inbuilt. Look at the school feeding program, for instance. It's a program started by President Akakpo. We expanded it. Now look at the chaos in there. The women go and borrow money, they cook, and for years, they are not paid. How are they supposed to run? You have one...
97 pesos, and they're calling for 3 cedis, and they say even the 3 cedis will just make them break
97
even.
pesos cannot buy a bulb of onion today. So how can it even prepare a nutritious meal for a child? Look at planting for foods and jobs. You say you want to plant so that you get foods and you employ people. Yet, vital inputs like fertilizer and seeds are not being paid for. How do you owe to the tune of almost 700 million Ghana cedis and purport to be running a successful program? So clearly, this government has got it wrong. They have programs with huge capital outlay that they do not know how to sustain. Again, when they are making policy, when they are making spending decisions, they do not factor in the need to be prudent. Look at what they did during COVID. You have COVID. And if you want to check how reckless they were, just compare us to our neighbors. All of them had COVID. But you see, when COVID struck, all governments that were prudent were minded to put in place measures to protect their citizens from the disease. So that was the first responsibility of government. This government chose, however, to do things outside of what was absolutely necessary because elections were coming and they wanted to create a feel-good factor, an artificial feel-good factor, so that they will get the votes. So right after the elections, they came to impose COVID tax and sanitation tax and all manner of taxes on people and increase the economic hardships that people were already going through. So it is imprudence, mismanagement, and poor policy choices that have driven us to the point that has brought us on our knees. And we are gasping for breath, and there's no solution.
We're gasping for economic breath.
Yeah.
Former President Mahama, he's been there, he's done that.
Sure.
He had the Senchi consensus.
Yes.
And yes, to your credit, you invited everyone to partake in it. He's calling for same to be done.
Yes, it is,
on the back of the fiscal deficit, the yawning debt gap, the fact that we're bleeding even in terms of our foreign reserves, and so many factors are not working for us currently. But what's the way out? I mean, because it appears almost everybody is leaning towards an IMF program now. But some have said that, sends precautionary, messages that, look, we've been there, we've done that. It doesn't solve any problem. What do you do in the interim? IMF, the Eurobonds are not available to you.
Yes.
So what do you do to shore up the economy?
The IMF is
what options do we have apart from the IMF?
The IMF is a quick fix. Essentially, over the next 3 years or so, if they indeed go for a program, they will put in place some measures and strategies to ensure that we bring back stability to our fiscals, which is important. Once stability is brought back to the fiscals, investors, that are stakeholders who deal with you in terms of foreign inputs, then regain confidence in you, so they are able to open up their markets. For instance, if you have debt service obligations, you have maturing debt, and you don't have the foreign exchange to readily pay off, you can go to the Eurobond, raise some money, and do a rollover, or basically replace the debt, and then get an extended maturity period, so that you have some breathing space. This government is not able to do that because since October last year, we've been shut out of the international market. Now, why have we been shut out? The investors have been taking a look at our books, and they are seeing that where we are heading to, it is not sustainable. They fear.
Have our credit ratings
affected? They fear
they
fear that if they lend us any more money, we will not be able to pay. And indeed, some of them are already withdrawing from our domestic bonds, and that's how come our city is plummeting. So the IMF program will provide an immediate sense of comfort and predictability for investors to deal with us. So you will find that we will gain access to the international bond markets. But as I have been reiterating all morning, the IMF program in itself will not be sufficient. And President Mahama made the point yesterday, it will not be sufficient because we have a twin problem. When we went to the IMF, we had a problem convincing investors that we were doing the right things. So that's what led to the coining of the phrase policy credibility. In other words, investors were skeptical about the suitability or workability of the proposals that we had put on the table. We had actually put a number of proposals on the table to address the problems we were having. But they were skeptical because they know that we as a country have a history of always missing targets whenever we take our eyes off the ball. So once the IMF comes in, they know that the IMF will insist that things are done in a manner that will restore stability.
Some say if we go the way of the IMF, one of the costs would be, public sector axing of jobs or non-recruitment.
Again, let me make it point. Let me make this point.
All of that. What is the reality of that?
Again, the NPP have become victims of their own falsehoods and propaganda. My brother, for the avoidance of doubt, there was no way in the IMF program of 2015 that they insisted that we do job cuts. What happened is that since 2008,
no moratorium being placed on
since 2008, under the late Kojo Baredo as finance minister, government itself saw that there was a need to control the wage bill, and the way to control it is to ensure that people do not hire haphazardly, and that people are hired on needs basis when there is vacancy. So a policy called net freeze, that means that people get employed when there is vacancy in the public sector. It was introduced by the Kufuor government. President Kufuor was under an IMF program at the time, and it was one of the ways that they thought that they could manage our resources in a manner that does not get out of hand. So there's actually a memo that I will share with you later, in which the finance minister at the time, the late Kojo Baredu, was admonishing all public sector agencies not to employ without recourse to his office, and that it was only when vacancies existed that people were to be employed. When we came into power, we made an exemption for education, that is teachers, health, nurses, and doctors, and then the security agencies. They were not under net freeze. But there was nowhere in the 2015 program that the IMF called for any job cuts. So I need to put that on the table.
So that point is clear. Before we go into more of what former President Mahama has been saying, just a quick thought. Now that you bring in Kufuor, when you look at our economic management under Kufuor, which your party criticized vehemently, and you look at now,
well, I think that, look, I was a vehement critic of President Kufuor. Indeed, in my formative years as a politician, I joined the civil society group, the Committee for Joint Action. And you recall that we staged all manner of protests across the length and breadth of this country. Because there were real hardships at it.
Burning issues. Right?
There were burning issues. There were real hardships. There were difficulties. Indeed, I'm sure you recall.
You spoke of the Kufuor gallons and all of those.
There was one night that President Kufuor had to address the nation on spiraling food prices and all that. And at the time that he was reading the script, we were scripting our responses. So that is how closely.
When you look at the time of Kufuor and how he managed, his team managed the economy,
he was
and now.
pragmatic. He was pragmatic.
Kufuor was pragmatic.
Yeah, when he came into power and noticed that we had a difficulty with our debt and sustainability, he went HIPIC. So he actually got relief to the tune of 5.3 billion.
Right, almost 6 billion.
Exactly. So when he left office, our debt had been reduced considerably. And that gave us some space for the government to invest in one sector or the other. We also
so that was good for you
of course it
when
was
you
good.
inherited the economy after Kufuor.
When we came in, we did even better. And I must put it on record, and the facts show that we brought in the most stable and prosperous period of economic management under the Fourth Republic.
Up till around 2014, and then things started going haywire.
Because of our cyclical tendency, to respond to political pressures and the needs to satisfy certain constituencies. So we started having slippages, especially after the 2012 elections. We had a deficit of about 11%, and that followed through to 2013 and 2014. But what we did is that we did not wait for the situation to deteriorate beyond salvation. We took immediate.
You went to the IMF.
We did a Century Forum, out of which consensus was because you need to bring your citizens along. They must appreciate and understand why you are taking certain decisions. And then we went to the IMF. Look, when we went to the IMF, within a matter of months, we gained access to the international markets. So we were able to raise Eurobonds to address some of our pressing commitments. And then you saw that stability quickly returned from a position of 11%. Indeed, by 2015, we had brought the deficit to 5%. And then in 2016, it went up to 6.1%. Our debt position started improving. Inflation came down from 19% in January 2016 to 15.4%. And it was on a downward trajectory. And that is what this government benefited from up to about 2018, 2019, thereabouts. So we did even better. Now, President Akufo-Addo had the greatest opportunity amongst all those who had preceded him to do much better than anybody else. For one, he has received far more resources than all the other governments that came before him put together. He has received over 500 billion Ghana cedis. The most that we had was 240 million Ghana cedis. But he has received 500 billion.
He has 240 billion, not million.
Billion. That is what we did in 8 years. In a matter of 5 years, he had received 500 billion. He has also enjoyed enormous goodwill from the people of Ghana. People have been very patient with him, up to a point where they saw that clearly he was not taking us anywhere. Now he was leading us to the path of ruin. Again, he does not appear to be in a hurry to address it. Look, there's been talk about dismissing the finance minister, for instance. In any self-respecting...
we would have gotten to that, but once we started, just go ahead.
In any self-respecting country, the finance minister himself would have resigned. Seeing the level of crisis that he has...
We didn't see Seth Tekpe resign on the back of the economic difficulties we were facing. We didn't see Seth Tekpe resign.
First of all, we got nowhere near where we are. You understand me? And then two, he was prepared to listen and take corrective measures in time to save the economy. This finance minister has been obstinate. How many times has he not stood on platforms and dismissed the idea of going to the IMF? Meanwhile, everybody knows that it is one of the ways that we can achieve some immediate relief to address our problems.
So if we have to go the way of the IMF now, what picture does that paint?
Well, you see, because of the propaganda they did, I'm sure there will be those in our society who will criticize them and they will take the flak. But it is not avoidable. However, the larger interest of the country dictates that you take that step. But you see, our finance minister's position is so untenable. Look, he has a direct vested interest in borrowing. Last week, he was in Parliament to answer some questions.
I've heard a lot of you talk about it.
Yes, let me explain it to you. Last week, he was in Parliament to answer a question asked by Honorable Teresa Winnie of Okankwe North. He was asked to indicate how much he has raised in bonds and how much transaction advisors have made in terms of fees. His answer shows, and I'll forward the documents to you, that between 2017 and 2021, he had raised as much as 207 billion Ghana cedis in bonds. His company, Data Bank, based on the figures he presented, has made over 150 million Ghana cedis in transaction fees. There's no country in the world.
Which is what percentage?
Which no, is about
0.5%.
Yes, but it is huge. If you raise 207 billion, 0.something% of it is huge. And it comes to about 150 million when we do the calculation.
Is that acceptable? Is that acceptable?
It is not acceptable.
Assuming.
Yeah.
Because we don't have these figures, so
I'll send it to you.
We cannot corroborate what you're saying independently. We cannot do that.
Now it is public.
But assuming this is correct, is that standard practice in financial terms?
First of all, I don't know of one country in this world where a finance minister will have such a direct vested interest in borrowing. In other words, the more he borrows, the more money he makes. So in a situation like that, the rational human being will borrow more so that his company makes more. That is why you don't put yourself in that position.
Are you suggesting maybe somehow intentionally the finance minister has been borrowing a lot so that he will line his pockets? Is that what you are alleging?
Viewers make that.
No, is that what you are alleging?
The point I'm making is this. I'm stating a fact. Viewers can deduce from the facts I'm putting out whether or not what you are saying is the case. The more, you see, the money he makes is directly proportional to how much is borrowed. His company exists to make profits. And he is a beneficial owner of Data Bank. So ultimately, the profits will come to him as shareholder. Now, if you were in this position, will you borrow more or will you borrow less? That is why he must avoid.
But there are checks and balances. He can't just go borrowing.
No, there are no checks and balances.
There are checks and balances. Even we may not necessarily have a ceiling when it comes to our debt to GDP portfolio, but there are checks and balances.
There's no such checks and balances. All you need to do is inform Parliament that you are going to borrow.
That is one of the checks and balances. Parliament is a check.
Yes, but Parliament will grant you the right to borrow because you may make a case for it. But you see, he's the man who makes the decision to borrow and how much you borrow. If he is making profit from borrowing, it is a clear, unmistakable conflict of interest situation. There's no decent country in this world, not even the most craving banana republic, will tolerate this. And therefore, Mr. Ofoyata's company should never have been involved. You know that when he sends out notices, notify the market about the issuance of bonds, his company also receives those notices. It is not an acceptable situation. And therefore, it must come to an end. Apart from that, he has shown remarkable incompetence.
If it is not acceptable, if it is as unacceptable as you paint the picture,
it's unacceptable.
How have we gone along with this for 5 years?
What can we do about it? The only person who has the power to stop this is his cousin, the president. Even the idea that he's the president's cousin is problematic. It is problematic.
But we know that.
That is the only reason.
First time that there are.
Well, but that is the only reason.
We had same President Mahama.
President Mahama didn't have a cousin as finance minister.
I'm not saying cousin, but relation.
President Mahama didn't have a cousin as finance minister.
There was a relation.
But the only person who can rein in this finance minister and dismiss him is President Akufo-Addo. He has not shown any inclination or any willingness to do that kind of thing. And we continue to go down this slippery slope, and our economy is on the verge of collapse. Perhaps they want us to get to the state of Sri Lanka before they take action. And I'm sure that if the Sri
Lanka state is, I mean, recently my readings about Sri Lanka and the videos I've seen, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there. And it's not a place that we should get to.
Yes. I mean, God forbid that we ever get there. Because when we get there, we will be in a real mess. But you see, the things that led to the Sri Lankan situation are all over what is happening.
You're saying the writing is on the wall.
Yes, I referred you to the Harvard professor who is the chief economist for the IMF. They group Ghana, Sri Lanka, Laos, and what have you in the same bracket as Sri Lanka. She says that there are other countries that will become like Sri Lanka in a matter of months, and Ghana is one of them.
All right, two quick questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Aren't you being too hard? You together with your flag bearer, the former president.
Indeed, I would argue.
Aren't you being too hard on Ken Ofori-Atta and this administration, our government, because they have to deal with the twin problems of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russo-Ukrainian war. We all know the impact across the world. That is one. And two, if you say the government should sack, basically Mr. President should sack Ken Ofori-Atta, what do? Don't you destabilize our economy? He knows better than anybody.
Well, I would argue
the exact state of our economy. Bringing someone in at this point in time could just, result in chaos.
I would argue
Two questions. So let's start with the twin problems.
I would argue that we have been very soft and tolerant of Mr. Ofori-Atta. I don't think that Ghanaians were this patient with the Mahama administration, which did not plunge us anywhere near the mess that we are in at the moment. So this president and his finance minister have exceeded tolerable limits. And then there's also the vice president, Bawumia, who is supposed to be the head of our economic management team, who is supervising this rot. People have been very tolerant of them. Indeed, if Ghanaians had been as demanding as they were of us, I don't think that things would have been like this. So the first point is that they cannot complain about criticism. Indeed, we have been very mild. President Mahama has been very mild. If you read the script, he was very mild. And he even went on to prefer alternatives. When they were criticizing us, they claimed that because they were paying taxes and we were the ones governing, they were not the ones to give us ideas. But we have gone ahead to give them ideas. That is the first point. So we have not been harsh. We have actually been very, very mild and accommodating of the finance minister, despite all the incompetence he has displayed. We have been accommodating of Dr. Bawumia, despite all the glaring incompetence he has displayed and the mess he has plunged us into. Now, in terms of the twin problem, you see, my brother, the COVID and Ukrainian crisis have long been discredited as the reason why we are in this mess. It is true that the global economy suffered shocks from these two developments. But we are such an outlier that it cannot be because of COVID and the global developments that we are here. Our neighbors, in West Africa, have similar economic characteristics as ours. Basically, we are almost like one people. Some of us speak the same languages. But the point is that they don't have the kind of deficit or debt or even inflation rates or currency depreciation that we are facing. So why is it that we are all affected by the same global developments, and yet our situation is so bad that we are gasping for breath and are unable to make any headway? We are unable to tell the tail from the head of the situation. But in those countries, they have been able to bring the situation under control. What is the inflation rate in Cote d'Ivoire? It's a single digit. It is single digit. Nigeria has the highest, apart from that. Yes, it's around 15%. We have almost 30%.
Yeah,
there's every indication.
Last time I checked,
there's every indication that we will cross the 30% threshold for inflation in the month of June. In the month of June.
Yeah, in the month of June.
So nobody can fault it. You see what this government did, and I keep on referring to electoral advantage. You know that when they came to power, there was some difficulty with the banking sector. All they needed was 9 billion Ghana cedis to bail out those banks so that they ran them well and returned them to profitability so that they can recoup the funds. But you see, when they saw that the banks were in trouble and they saw that the banks had 4.6 million customers, they immediately started counting votes. They collapsed the banks and then went to borrow 25 billion to pay 4.6 million people to create a feel-good factor for electoral advantage. So they saw votes where they should have seen reason and prudence. That is why we are here. And then the expenditure, look at the expenditure items that the finance minister went to recite in Parliament. How do you spend almost $100 million on Veronica buckets and hand sanitizers for secondary school children? I mean, how much are those items sold for? That you will need to cough up over almost 600 million Ghana cedis in order to buy it. These clearly are inflated cost items, which have been foisted on the people of Ghana and have worsened our situation. But I think that we must accept as a people that the COVID and Ukrainian Russo war cannot become a reason why we are in this mess, because all other countries have faced it, and yet their situation is not as terrible as ours. It is economic mismanagement. It is policy intransigence, an unwillingness to listen, and a certain pride, a certain belief in pedestrian propaganda, political posturing. That is why we are here.
On the score of the e-levy, what do we do with it? Do we scrap it? Do we maintain it?
We have said that we will. You see,
you have said in the past, but you must face the reality of the times. I mean, even if we're going to the IMF, the e-levy would be something that we may need in our kitchen,
Yesterday, President Mahama described it as the mother of all nuisance taxes. You see, a nuisance tax basically is a tax that imposes a burden on the citizenry, but does not yield much. The projections underlying the e-levy were completely flawed. It does not appear that any serious thinking went into the decision to impose that levy because they could not predict consumer behavior.
You think it was just reaching out for low-hanging fruit?
So what had happened was that they had come under pressure at the time to go to the IMF. And because of political calculations, they were simply buying time. So they presented the e-levy as a panacea to investors in order to buy a little time. Now, it is obvious that the e-levy will not do anything for us. Look, in the month of May, they projected that they will make 471 million Ghana cedis. That was the target for May. They got only 53.7 million Ghana cedis, which is 11.4%. In the first week of June, they looked forward to getting about 150 million. They got only 7.1 million Ghana cedis. Do you need a soothsayer to tell you that this is an abject failure and that it is going nowhere? Because people are avoiding the tax.
But it could pick up. How just as VAT picked up.
No. You see, VAT affects...
Else VAT would have been buried in the Kumi Preko, demonstrations.
What we did was...
But it came back. And today it's above 17%.
What we did with VAT is that when there was agitation, we withdrew it, reconsidered it, and brought it back. But the point is that VAT is almost inescapable. Because no matter what you do today, you are going to have to eat. You will drink water. If you buy sugar, if you buy rice, if you buy wache this morning, you will pay VAT. So it is not avoidable. But Momo or mobile money transactions are avoidable. You can live without mobile money transactions. So for that reason, it is not predictable. There's no certainty with that. So we have said that, look, in addition to the problems that it is creating in terms of hardships, it is also reversing the gains that we've made in financial inclusion, because that is an avenue through which those who were not within the formal economic bracket got participation. And over the years, there's been some work to increase financial inclusion. There's been some work to increase technology uptake in the way that our economy runs. This e-levy is having the effect of reversing the gains because people are pulling out. Only a day or two ago, GRA announced that they were now going to charge e-levy on vendor SIMs. Vendors, the SIMs that they use, they will be charged so that if you you opt to pay money through a vendor, you will also pay the e-levy. I'm certain that the vendors will find a clever way of avoiding that. Or at the very least, they will close shop so that they do not have to bear the implications of this e-levy. Now, this will be detrimental to all the gains that we've made in financial inclusion. So even for the purposes of sustaining growth in financial inclusion, the e-levy has to go because it has proven not to be a sustainable tax. It's not a tax that will yield anything significant for us. And it's not a tax that will address the problems that we have. We will never say that we will impose tax. No government can live without it. So we will not be hypocritical. We will not mount platforms and recite slogans from taxation to production. Meaningless, empty slogans that have yielded nothing.
In terms of loans, one of the strategies we have to employ, you have said that you will not support tag unconstitutional loans, that you're going to be blocking them in Parliament. You also talk about the fact that you won't support any loans that have no purpose. But every loan has a purpose.
Well, first of all, we have said the exact words that the former president used, that we are not going to support non-concessionary borrowing. Concessionary borrowing is borrowing that comes at very, very minimal cost and interest rate, sometimes 1.5%. But look at this 1 billion loan that they've gone for instance. There's a 250 million component coming from three banks: Standard Chartered Bank, Rand Merchant Bank, and Standard Bank of South Africa. Now, the 250 million loan comes with insurance alone of 40.6 million. The insurance premium is 3.12%. If you calculate it, it amounts to $40.6 million on the 5-year tenure of the loan. You are going for 250 million, and yet you pay 40 million in insurance. The interest rate is 7.29%. And that's
almost a fifth.
Absolutely. And that works to 86 million. So if you put this together, when we pay the 250 million off, we have to pay an additional $127 million in cost. The reason why this is very expensive is that we don't have other options. And lending to Ghana has become a high-risk activity because we are high-risk distress, high-debt distress. That means that...
Are we there?
Yes. Oh, the IMF, World Bank, all of them have classified us as such.
We have a risk of distress. I have not seen, in all my readings of the literature from the Brethren Woods institutions, I have not seen high risk. There's a risk of debt distress, but not high risk.
I will send you even more literature. We are at high risk of debt distress. It has been so since 2019. It has always been exacerbated by worse mismanagement. But the point I'm making is that the reason why insurance premium and the costs are so high is that the lenders are hedging against the risk of lending to us because of our high likelihood of default. Now, if you come to the 750 million component of this 1 billion loan, we have not even spoken about insurance because they are concealing that. They've not given any information about that. But the interest payment alone will amount to 351 million. So if you put these two components together to form the 1 billion, we will pay 1 billion as the principal when it is due in about 7 years. And then we'll pay an additional $438 million in cost. It is simply mind-boggling. It is crazy. It does not make sense. And it is something that will impact negatively on our finances. Now, the interest for this loan will start accruing 6 months after it is signed. So in the next 6 months, you have to start paying interest. Now, already, we took 2025 and 2026 Eurobonds. So they amount to $2.7 billion. Now, in the first 15 months of the next administration, starting from 2025, we have to cough up $2.7 billion, I beg your pardon, which is 24 billion to service 2 Eurobonds that we took. If you add this 400 million cost from this 1 billion loan to it, we are talking $3 billion for a new government within a matter of 15 months. Indeed, in the years between 2025 and 2029, we have to pay a total of 30 billion Ghana cedis in amortization for 4 loan items alone. Forget about all the other loan items that we need to service and pay for. So this is not sustainable. And if we ever allow this kind of loan transaction to pass in Parliament, it is going to worsen our situation as Ghanaians. That's why President Mahama advised that, one of the reasons that they've cited for going for this loan is that they need to improve our, reserve position, our international reserves. But everybody knows that if you have difficulty with balance of payment, you go to the IMF. They will give you concessionary balance of payment support, which comes at minimal cost, very, very low cost. Already they went for one when COVID struck. They went for balance of payment support of $1 billion. It came at very, very minimal interest, sometimes 1%, which does not impose the kind of burden that this one will be imposing. Again, it is not every loan that is project specific. When you look at the loan, they will tell you that it is going to job creation, but they will not specify what that means. Often what they do is that they use it, they put it in a budget, and then they add it to our debt service obligations. So you won't find the money in any specific project. So President Mahama is saying that if you bring a loan, and it is not non-concessional, in other words, the terms are not favorable and low.
So let's quickly go back to that. If it's not non-concessional,
if the loan is non-concessional, it doesn't. In other words, it's not a concessionary loan. We are not
exactly.
And for the abundance of concessionary, a concessionary loan is a loan that comes with very favorable terms. Often, you get that from multilateral and bilateral sources. So it is very low. If you bring a commercial loan with this kind of cost implication for the taxpayer, we will not be supporting it. If you bring a loan that is not project specific, in other words, you bring a loan that is not, say, going to finance a water project at Nkoko or build a hospital at Kawukudi, we are not supporting it. We are not supporting budget loans that have no specific purpose other than adding to government's chest to spend on non-priority areas. Now, this is necessary.
What are those non-priority areas?
They have all manner. They have all manner of fanciful terminologies that they use to describe this. Basically, they will add it to the money that they use to pay our debts. You can't borrow to pay debts. Otherwise, you are not going anywhere. Now, this is necessary as a way of checking government. You see, my brother, everybody knows it is conventional wisdom that when you find yourself in a pit, you fall in a hole. You don't dig. You actually find a pedestal to stand on to get out of the hole. But this government continues digging. Already, we owe 400 billion Ghana cedis. This loan alone will add 8 billion Ghana cedis to our debt portfolio in one fell swoop. So our debt will increase. In 6 months, the interest or debt servicing obligation around this loan will add to our already precarious debt service position, which we cannot even meet as I speak to you. So this is necessary to protect the taxpayer from a worsening economic situation.
And I suppose because your party, your administration, former administration, is going to come back into power.
So certainly.
I guess, in a way, you're trying to forestall a situation where when you come back, the economy will be in a very bad state.
You forget about the NDC. Forget about it.
No. We need to get to that.
It is true. We have absolutely every intention of coming back. We've not hidden it at all. And indeed, we'll be starting a frontal campaign to do that. But the point is that
if you inherit an economy that you claim is this bad,
we certainly do not.
What are the measures you're going to be implementing?
We certainly do not want to inherit a bad economy. Indeed, no government deserves that. That is why
you claim it.
That is why
it's bad.
But it is
if
bad.
you inherit it, what will you do?
If if we inherit it, all the things we are saying, debt restructuring is something we will pursue. And we've made it very, very clear. We've not hidden it. We will ensure that we align expenditure with revenue. We are not going to engage in the reckless expenditure that is. Certainly, our president will not be flying in 20,000 euro an hour jets when we have a presidential jet sitting here. We will not be devoting hundreds of millions of dollars.
We're talking
to
5,000 an hour and the rest.
Yeah, but you
20,000 is.
Look, the president can go commercial. Even if he flies first class, the most it will cost us will be 6,000. Just one of $6,000 for the return flight. But if he hires a 20,000 euro an hour jet, it means that 20,000 every hour for as long as the president continues to maintain use of that jet. So we are in deep trouble. Our president will not behave that way. We will not spend hundreds of millions of dollars on fanciful projects that have no financial necessity and any tangible benefits for the people. We are not going to waste money on projects that are poorly thought through. Every single expenditure we make will be aligned to the interest.
Now that you talk a lot about money, expenditure, and projects and all of that, what is your take on the National Cathedral, for example?
Well,
and hold on, we're expending a lot of money in that. I mean, per some estimates that we've had here, when you add what Okudzeto Ablakwa has alleged will go into compensation, about 100 million. When you add what we've paid to David Ajay, about 22 million. When you add the actual figure for the construction of the cathedral and other, ancillary issues, we're looking at $547 million. If the cathedral is completed, and should your administration come to power, what are you going to do? Yesterday, I interacted with Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. He said we should turn it into a university for governance, for parliamentarians and others.
Well, others too have said.
What would you do with it?
Others have said that it can also be turned into a specialist hospital for children or a specialist hospital for
the design wouldn't fit that.
Oh, you can always alter. But the point is this. I think that as for those ones, you can always have a debate over it. But the point is that I'm a Christian just like anybody. But I can assure you that I do not lend support to this sort of expenditure. If Christians decide that they will put up an edifice like that, and Christians have shown capacity to build mega structures across the length and breadth of this country. If they decide that they want to build a cathedral and they want help from government by way of land or some form of facilitation, I don't think that anybody will quarrel with it, because nobody has quarreled with all the mega cathedrals that Christians have built across the length and breadth of this country. But a country with the sort of problems that we have, a country that cannot pay 97 pesos per head for children to be fed once in a day, a country that owes Ghanaian businesses to the tune of 30 billion Ghana cedis, so that their businesses are collapsing and they are having to dismiss or send employees home, a country that cannot print textbooks for basic school pupils for 3 years, a country where students still sit under trees to receive instruction, cannot spend $400 million on a cathedral. I'm not sure there's any religious justification for this. Because I've always asked the question, I don't know of one priest who would rather starve his children and go and pay collection at church. The first responsibility that this government has to the people of Ghana is to ensure that they have a better life, is to ensure that the economy is managed well. If you have not been able to do that, sometimes people get employed in the public sector, and for months they have not received even a single salary. As I speak to you, national service personnel are still owed allowances. The allowances for teaching and nursing trainees are still in arrears. NAPCO employees, people who were unemployed and who were promised jobs, have worked for 3 years. They've been sent home and for several months have not been paid. How are they supposed to survive? You cannot meet this because of your rigidities, and yet you want to spend $400 million on a cathedral. I cannot lend support to that, despite my abiding faith in Christianity. And so I am very clear. There are those even in our party who hold a slightly contrary view. But I think that we need to be very clear on this.
Can they complete the cathedral?
From what I'm seeing,
can government complete the cathedral?
From what I'm seeing, even if this government wanted to, they cannot, because they don't have the money. And again, you have to question the judgment.
If they don't complete the cathedral, what would that mean for us in terms of...
It would be a terrible waste. Indeed, the land on which that cathedral is situated doesn't cost anything less than 120 million Ghana cedis. Because where it is, it's prime land. It's 14 acres. That is not less than 120 million Ghana cedis.
The judges' quarters,
the judges' quarters that were demolished, the companies that we have to pay compensation
the scholarship
for.
secretariat.
It was completely unnecessary. Government was not ready. They didn't have a dedicated funding line. They didn't have anything, and yet they said, who builds? Even the Bible stipulates that before you build, you must count the cost.
Where you're going. Right.
Before you build, you must count the cost.
So you don't start and stop.
How do you start a project when you've not counted the cost? We were told that it will cost $100 million. Then it jumped to 200. Then it came to 300. It came to 350. Now we are told it's 400 million. Look at all the procurement violations and infractions, the underhand dealings, the sleaze, the lack of transparency, the opacity, the darkness, the shadowy nature of some of the transactions, the inflated figures paid to the architects, as Imani and other civil society organizations have proven in past days. So there's everything wrong with building a cathedral, at least to the extent that it is funded by the state.
But it still has a lot of support. In fact, I've cited documents pointing to the fact that there's a week of,
but you see,
prayer, fasting, and raising of funds and all that. Ghanaians are contributing to the kitty. About 31 million Ghana cedis have been raised.
Christians have the right to build any number of cathedrals they want. So I'm not going to quarrel with any religious organization that wants to build a cathedral. So they are entitled, and I wish them well in the effort to mobilize resources to do this. But it must not be done at the expense of the public purse, because we simply do not have the money for it. That has been my position from day one. And that position has not changed since then. Indeed, yesterday I listened to Professor Opoku Unyine's press conference, where he said that they are raised up to 31 million Ghana cedis. Great. More grease to their elbow. Let them raise more if they can. And if they are able to build it, that is fine. But the public or the Republic of Ghana should not have to pay a dime for this, especially at a time.
I remember engaging some members of parliament on the majority side. Typical among them, the member of parliament for Second D, I think, Andre Japamesa, who says, if it were left to him, first of all, Akufo-Addo is not going to, our president is not going to will the cathedral to his children, he says. And that if it were left to him, we should even foot the entire bill. Well, it has been corroborated by some other members of parliament.
Well, Mesa is a deputy minister in Akufo-Addo's government. He dares not
contradict. He's a deputy energy minister.
He dares not contradict them.
He has a mind of his own.
Well, the day he expresses disagreement with his boss, the president on the cathedral, that will be the day he is removed from office. So I'm not sure that if you want to form a view, an objective view.
How can you say that categorically?
Oh, but why? Who survives disagreement with Akufo-Addo? You can ask Boakye Jaku for the consequences of disagreeing with him. You can ask what happened to Kwabena Japan and Paul Afoko and Co., even within his party. So he's not a man who tolerates dissent. Certainly not within his party and not within government. But the point I'm making is that support for the cathedral by a member of the Akufo-Addo government is simply like saying that a dog barks. You understand me? It is obvious. It is a given. It doesn't mean anything. But I think that when we engage in rational, objective analysis of national issues, everybody knows what is right. A majority of Ghanaian Christians are opposed to public funding of the cathedral. They are not opposed to the idea of a cathedral. I don't think they should. To the extent that it is funded by Christians through their churches, that is fine. If public-spirited individuals want to contribute, they are entitled to do so. They are free to do what they want with their money. But the public purse must be used judiciously. The president actually promised to use the public purse. He said he will protect the public purse. At this moment, the public purse has been left bare and is being subject to systematic abuse.
So one of the options would be, like you're saying, maybe to turn it into a hospital.
Of course, people have said, for instance, if the Republic of Ghana has money, $400 million, it would be wiser to invest it in a public facility that has direct benefit. But a few yards from the site of the National Cathedral, it's a $250 million hospital, which is serving a tangible purpose. When you go there today, you will see people receiving healthcare, first-class healthcare. Decide for yourself who you would hand a country over to. A man who gets $250 million invests in a world-class hospital that is delivering world-class health services to Ghanaians, or another one who wants to spend it on a cathedral.
All right.
That does not have a tangible benefit.
To cap off the conversation, I think we've addressed all the economic angles and what the way forward would be. So basically, we should go to the IMF, right?
Well, I think it's not like the government has a choice between going to the IMF and doing something else. There's no something else to be done.
Do you feel very soon, maybe this administration's hand would be tied and they would have to go to the
I won't be surprised if in the next few days we hear that they have made the necessary approaches to the IMF. Because, like I said, they don't have a choice.
You wouldn't be surprised if in the next few days...
I will not be surprised if in the next few days that call is made. Because the point I'm making is that it's not like they have a choice between A and B. They don't have a choice between the IMF and something else. There's no something else to be had. There's only the IMF and something that needs to be done about our debt. Those are the only two things they need to do. And you see, incidentally, both actions are interrelated. Our creditors will not tolerate any discussions that are not led by the IMF with regards to doing something about our debt in terms of rescheduling our interest payments, what have you. The IMF too will not touch us with the long pole if they have the indication that our debt is not sustainable. So they are likely to ask us as part of the prior actions to do something about our debt. But once investors get word that we are in touch with the IMF and there's a likelihood that we'll go under a program, they'll be willing to listen to us. So the government must stop the death rate. There's no point in political posturing. There's no disgrace in going to the IMF. It is the NPP itself that made it look like Egypt has gone to the IMF.
Right.
The leaders in Egypt don't feel disgraced. Right. They don't feel ashamed.
Right.
They've gone there.
True.
Egypt is a much better country than Ghana in terms of economic profile. Their economic indicators are much better than ours. They are doing they are building new cities. And yet they've gone to the IMF. But you look at a country
and it wouldn't be the first time.
That wouldn't be we have gone to the IMF 16 times prior to this one. If we ever go. You understand me? So it is nothing new. We are in any event, whether you go to the IMF or not, every year they come here to sit down. Indeed, I think in about a month or two ago, they were here to do Article 4 consultation. Right. That simply means that we opened up our books for them to assess whether we're on the right path. And they told us point blank that we're not on the right path. So we have a running engagement with the IMF already. Just that now we have a peculiar problem that requires peculiar prescriptions that the IMF can help with. So let the president make the call and stop the district.
All right. Just to cap off the conversation, if you can do this in a minute for me, I'd be very grateful. Like you can see in today's Finder newspaper, 29 rioters to face court on Monday as police commit to arrest all other perpetrators. You know the 29 I'm speaking about on the back of the Arise Ghana demonstration. What is your take in just about a minute on the happenings on day one, especially the posturing of the demonstrators versus the police and the arrest of these people?
I saw gory pictures of demonstrators who had been assaulted, some with horrific injuries. I saw a man whose eyeballs had virtually been scooped out. I suspect that he will lose that eye. He will lose visibility in that eye. It's a terrible reflection on policing. Look, the inclination of the Ghana Police Service should be to offer service to the public. The fact that we are protesting against a government does not mean that you need to rally to that government's defense. It is not your place to do so. So I was shocked.
So you can actually expatiate on this a bit. We've been given a little more breathing time.
So I was surprised.
Maybe you can share your thoughts on the demonstration days.
So I was surprised when within a few minutes of the IGP's address that they should be peaceful and respectful of the demonstrators, things descended into chaos. And I did not expect that to happen. I thought that we had overcome that as a country. We had...
Which is what? Overcome what exactly?
In terms of assaulting and brutalizing demonstrators.
But you saw what the demonstrators did.
No, but you see, the point is that
you saw what the demonstrators did.
You see, I will not justify any...
One of the police officers was pictured and it has gone wide.
I see.
A photo from the Ghana Broadcasting.
When you compare...
No, just hold it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people misunderstood. But guess what? Our reporter was right there. He was returning a stone.
But the point is that you have to ask yourself...
I mean, it wasn't professional to do that, but you know the human element. They threw them...
No, that is the point. You see, it is not the place of leaders of demonstrations to maintain law and order. It is the reason why they are there is to maintain law and order, to ensure that if anybody behaved outside of the ambit of the law, they are dealt with. So your first inclination is not to assault demonstrators, even if you think that they are undermining law and order. Your first inclination is to bring it under control and not to inflict horrific injuries on them. So the police must bear responsibility and they must be criticized severely for mishandling and bangling what should have been a straightforward act of maintaining law and order. So
you lay the blame squarely at the doorstep of the police?
The police has far too much experience in this. I am a serial demonstrator. I have organized demonstration in conjunction with my colleagues in the CJA. And the police's posturing to every demonstration is that they must do something to undermine it because they do not want the venting against the government of the day. That posture that our police has, that somehow they are answering.
Is that a posturing? Since you referred to the police, is that the posturing that has also existed under your administration?
Since time immemorial. I will not be hypocritical.
It's good you put it that way.
I will not be hypocritical and create the impression that it's a new development. But the police is under the impression that they must preserve government's interests at all times.
Maybe it's also why some people are saying that, look, wean those powers off the executive president. Because once the president is, and once the police service is a part of the executive, these things will
Some have even gone ahead to call for an independent police commission that supervises the activities of the police so that they have the necessary independence to act. But at the moment, what we have is a service, and indeed the entire security service is tuned to ensure that the regime survives instead of the nation surviving. So any protestation, any demonstration, any act that appears to be detrimental to the interest of the regime breaks them, jolts them into action to protect the interests of the regime. That is why their first inclination is to oppose every proposal for a demonstration. Every time they have to go to court to seek to either alter the time or the route of the demonstration.
But some of the requests are, for lack of a better word, preposterous. I mean, when you say you want to go on a demonstration and you want to go with your own armed people,
that certainly cannot be allowed. That,
I mean,
of course. So there are those
absurd.
So now there's unanimity. When that matter broke, there was unanimity. There was consensus within Ghanaian society that was absurd. There was no way that could be tolerated. So people can tell when things are done in a manner that does not reflect reason or sound judgment. So the police. And
when you want to demonstrate at night, you want to picket the Jubilee House at night. I mean, looking at the circumstances.
What circumstances?
Look at what they are saying. That look, in the sub-region, at night, you want to do that.
No.
with a threat, with a threat of everything we know.
They are telling me that the police service of Ghana cannot provide security at night. So today, if there's an emergency at Multimedia at night, the police cannot rush here and provide you security. I beg to differ. They have capacity to do it. They simply did not want the spectacle because they thought it to be embarrassing to government. Otherwise, I don't see what if somebody wants to sit at a particular place for 10 days continuous. What is the police's business? To the extent that it does not disrupt regular activity. In any event, there's some room for disruption during demonstrations. I have been to capitals of this world. I've been to New York, London, where impromptu demonstrations have been held. And within the spare of a moment, a road that was free had been blocked so that demonstrators could have access and demonstrate. There have been demonstrations that have been staged for days on end. So the Ghana Police Service must change their posture. They must change their outlook and reflect one that is serving the public, not the government. If we got that right, I don't think we'll have some of these problems. But I think that despite the inauspicious start, the demonstration peaked on the second day. I think that people showed revulsion and
because on the first day, one of the things that many people said was, look, the very reason the people had hit the streets was lost.
Because
in
it was
the
natural
chaos
that the media would focus on
generated.
the chaos and the altercations that ensued. But to the credit of the organizers, they were able to refocus the purpose for the demonstration, and people who felt that they identified with the principles that the organizers were espousing came out in their numbers and participated, and it went peacefully. So you want to ask, what happened on the first day? How is it that the Ghana Police Service, within a matter of 24 hours, is able to change posture such that they are more accommodating, more tolerant and respectful of the rights of demonstrators? And
Speaking of tolerance, do you feel, and some of you have alleged, I want to know what your thinking is, this administration is so intolerant that it is preventing people from practicing or exercising a genuinely legal right, which is to demonstrate. I mean, I've heard the likes of, on the back of some of these happenings, Professor Kwesi Ening has been speaking. He says, look, I could criticize under the former administration and sleep, heartily. But
and
now,
Professor Ening is not necessarily a lover of the NDC. Everybody knows that. And for him to be able to testify in such glowing terms about the NDC administration, it's a clear indication that something has changed. Indeed, in the last few weeks, we have been bombarded with
what has changed?
One report after the other about clear deterioration in media freedoms, clear deterioration in human rights standards, clear deterioration in the space, the political space, which have been superintended by President Akufo-Addo. His government has not been disposed to allowing for free expression. Indeed, I am aware of journalists who live in fear for their practice. I know of instances where journalists have published stories and government officials have zoomed in to intimidate them to disclose their sources, with all manner of threats dangling around them. I don't think that it is proper. And it is regrettable that after 30 years of continuous democratic practice, we've come to a juncture where journalists have to look over their shoulder. And you are in the media. I'm sure you feel the criticism that is leveled against you people all the time, that you appear to be a bit more tolerant of this administration than you were of the previous one. There may be good reasons for that posture, because they say self-preservation is the first principle of life. So you do not want to incur the wrath of a government. You see, they may not do that. They may not bring security agents here to drag you into jail or behind bars, but they may use other ways to suppress you. You have instances where journalists reveal information, granted that the information they put out is false. But why do you arrest a journalist and seek to imprison him because he's told a lie, if we were to speak bluntly? Where in this world does that happen? Where in the democratic world does this happen? When we do know that there's recourse to civil action to seek redress if you feel hard done by something that has been reported about you. But the standards have so fallen, the space has been emasculated, political opponents, media practitioners, civil society operatives have come under direct attack from this government. And it shocks many people But it doesn't shock me because President Akufo-Addo showed signs of it when he was opposition leader. I spoke to you about Kwabena Japan. I mean, there's a famous saying that I repeat everywhere I go. You see, when a man catches a tortoise and plucks feathers from it, the back of a tortoise, what do you expect the man to do when he lays hands on a chicken? So when the man was...
Tortoise doesn't have feathers.
Yes, so it is only...
I get it. It's figurative.
Exactly, it's figurative. So if he is able to deal with his own in the harsh terms that he dealt with Kwabena Japan and Afuko, there were times when thugs, militants, loyal to him, went to lock up Afuko's office, dragged out Paul Afuko from his office. We saw how the headquarters of the MPP became the staging post of violent confrontations over disagreements with Akufo-Addo's policies internally. If the man was able to do that, what did you expect him to do when he became commander-in-chief of the armed forces and he had all this power? We went to elections in 2020. 8 people were gunned down as we speak. Not a finger has been raised by the president on this matter. And those 8 people have died in vain. There's nothing that has been done to ensure that justice is sought for the loss of their lives and the pain and suffering that their family have gone through. So clearly, President Akufo-Addo on all fronts has not lived up to expectation. He has disappointed even his most ardent supporters. I have been a critic of him since time immemorial. But even I have been shocked at the level of underperformance that he's displayed. I don't think that this is right. And I think that the new Patriotic Party deserves to be booted out of office at the earliest opportunity in 2024 so that we get a government that is more adherent and tolerant of the people of Ghana, that is more respectful of the views of the people, and that has an agenda to rebuild after the complete demolition exercise that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government has performed on the foundations that were...
I think this time we can actually say that this will be the very final bid. And I had to bring it in. Of course, today is not a holiday. Yes. It has changed. Yes. But today would have been, in the past, what we would call Republic Day. And this would be, because it was in 1960, so this would be what? The 62nd Republic Day. What's your quick reflection on Ghana?
See, first of all,
after 62
yesterday,
years
I recall having to Google to find out whether today is a holiday or not, because I was not certain. But you see, it is a reflection of the whimsical government of President Akufo-Addo. This overriding need to change everything, rename things, reconfigure things. What was wrong with the celebration of Republic Day as a holiday that necessitated its change into a commemorative day instead of a holiday? What was wrong with it? This is a key milestone in our national history. Because up until then, the head of state of Ghana was a foreigner, the Queen of England. And we attained complete independence, such that we now had our own executive president. It is a significant day. Perhaps, apart from the Independence Day, this is the second most significant day in terms of our nation's history. And yet, President Akufo-Addo felt that he had to be scrapped. And instead, brought in a 4th August celebration, which only marks the day that the UGCC, which is a progenitor of the MPP, was formed. Parochial, partisan, sectarian interest over the national interest, because the president's father and his uncle were within that group. We cannot have governance run that way. You see, when the mandate of the people of Ghana and resources are entrusted to you, you don't use it to further your own familial interests. So you want to honor your father and your uncle by putting in place a date that reflects your party's history, and you superimpose that on the nation and scrap a holiday that all of us can identify with. I would advocate strongly any day that the NDC comes to power that 4th August date must be scrapped. It holds no significance for our country beyond.
And Republic Day restored?
Republic Day must be restored because it's an important celebration. I am not necessarily a fan of many holidays, but at least if we're going to have holidays, they must carry meaning for the people of this country, not sectarian and partisan interest, as President Akufo-Addo has pursued.
Phyllis Wachi-Ofosu, thank you for joining us in the studio. Thank you for doing us the honors, coming and sharing your thoughts with us. And we wish you the very best. Of course, a former deputy minister on both fronts, the information front and the communications front. He joined us for this all-important conversation. I'll be sharing with you my blunt thoughts shortly, but let's take a breather, shall we? Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for every occasion. 330, 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. But if you want more, we have also introduced our special 19-liter jars for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Water wherever you go. So come on, grab your bottle of Awake Water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. That is heartwarming for me. It's produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchases, just call 0262 351 251. And just so you know, VAT returns are due for submission on the last working day of every month. Failure to submit returns attracts a penalty. Don't say we didn't tell you. Now, let's talk about renting to own your own facility, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 bedroom house or beachfront villa in the new Accra city. Cities and Habitats rent to own at a price you can afford and at a pace you can easily pay. Visit www.newaccra.city for more details, or call or WhatsApp the following numbers: 0555 530 300 or 0577 911 101 or 0557 054 635. The Planned Cities Extension Project, shaping Ghana's urban future. Do stay with us. After the break, I'll be sharing with you my blunt thoughts this Friday morning, like I've done over the last 3 weeks. And today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on missing the industrialization boat, the curious case of Ghana. I'll be back after the break. Ghana 4, it's another Friday, and without mincing words, I'm about to share with you my blunt thoughts. You know how I do it. I don't mince words. Today I've titled my blunt thoughts, Missing the Industrialization Boat, the Curious Case of Ghana. I challenge you, yes, you watching me, to name for me one country that has attained the status of a developed nation without industrializing or reaching a high income level, and I shall show you how we can make pigs fly. Just as you cannot find any examples of such countries, you see, in the same way pigs cannot possibly fly, at least not for now. But what does it mean really to industrialize? In very simple terms, countries industrialize when a lot of the work done by humans start being done by machines. But no, it does not mean people lose jobs. On the contrary, a lot more jobs are created, as in many instances human resource is needed to man and maintain these machines. Industrialization actually creates more specialized jobs too. In a country that opens up to industrialization, people adopt easier and cheaper ways of manufacturing, and better technologies are employed to produce more goods in less time. Sound good? Of course, it ought to. This is music to anyone's ears because industrialization has proven to be the birth of advancement in the ways we desperately need to evolve as a country. When you go to those Western or Eastern countries, or to the Middle East, and return to flaunt the pictures you took, do you ever stop to think what it would take for Ghana to look like same? Do you? If you don't, you lack foresight. If you do, that's a crucial start. Our leaders, many of whom have schooled, vacationed, or been to those places, see these advancements, but are so inept that they cannot replicate same here. But why? Are the people living in those countries more human than we are? Are they better? Most assuredly not. But while we make everything political and fail to think, plan, and execute, the rest of the world is fast leaving us behind. The key word in industrialization is manufacturing. Get your industries working in the right economic environment, and your people will be on their way to unparalleled prosperity. It worked for the Europeans, the Americans, Canadians, and Japanese. Between 1750 and 1900, the gross national income, also known as gross national product, in terms of the purchasing power parity of these countries, lumped together, jumped from far less than $1,000 to $2,500. For Africa, and yes, I know many will speak of the effects of colonization, though we've been 2/3 of a century and slightly less out of it for most parts of our continent. That figure was not even close to $1,000 by 1900. Gross national income, by the way, reflects the total domestic and foreign output claimed by residents of a country, consisting of gross domestic product plus factor incomes earned by foreign residents minus the income earned in the domestic economy by non-residents. Now, on to more current statistics. The gross national income per capita of Ghana reached $2,340 in 2020. In that same year, The GNI per capita was $40,770 in Japan, $47,500 in Canada, and for a more fair comparison, $4,370 in Kenya, $5,000 in Nigeria, $6,020 in Angola, $11,870 in South Africa, $12,000 plus in Egypt, and $15,570 in Botswana. Do you see how far behind we are on this score, even in our own backyard of Africa? South Africa boasts that on their roads, you wouldn't spot a single pothole. Here, you'd be lucky not to spot a few even on the best roads. In South Africa, when roads lose a little luster or color, they do an asphalt paint job. It's all part of the look and feel, and the reason some people travel to see that country. Here, unless the road is as dangerous as a Sudanese pirate targeting an unarmed shipping vessel, we pretend everything is all right until lives are lost. 3 years back to back, we've had a year of roads. Yet look at our roads. Don't just sit in a cry and say the roads are fine. Go out there to the hinterlands, for Christ's sake. That paint job, the scouting and all that creates jobs in South Africa. Must I say this before we realize we're so far behind? Look, I'm not supporting cheating at school, but the worst student really is the one who cannot even copyright. And that is precisely what our leaders are. On the international scene, if what works for another can work in your own environment, what do? You do not have to reinvent the wheel. You merely duplicate, copy saying. Why can we not imitate what the Asian juggernauts, whom we call the Asian tigers, did? After all, they all practically came out of situations just like ours. So why not follow their path, their lead to development? Somebody explain to me again why we still import so much super glue, rice, tomatoes, onion, sugar, poultry, toothbrushes, clothing, tires, and everything in between. We even import toothpicks when there is an abundance of bamboo all over the country. What at all is wrong with us? And why do we import so many used clothes? With all the concomitant problems, doesn't it make you wonder how in 2020 we actually imported more used clothing, obroni wewu, into this country than any other country in the world? Do you know how much hard currency we spent doing so? $182 million. Do you realize what this could have done for the Ghanaian clothing entities and how much business it could have created if we had a booming clothing creation industry? Obroni wewu has been with us for years, generations, I agree. But a chunk of whatever comes in, sometimes 70 to 90% of the contents of the bales that arrive, turn out to be trash or items unsuitable for use, which then add to the junk that accumulates in our system and creates rubbish we don't have the means of dealing with. And in some cases, items to further clog our sewage systems and escalate the threat of flooding. And why is this? We do not have big industries that produce clothes for the masses. How many clothing brands do we have in Ghana? Name them. How many can you mention? How many, apart from those working on African prints, do we have producing sneakers, sweatshirts, socks, cotton shirts, suits, singlets, boxers, stockings, brassieres, and other women's underwear? Do you see how pathetic we are? Pick a typical Ghanaian and ask him where the things he or she is wearing are from, and you'd realize our situation is indeed desperate. Once you are such a consumerist country and economy, you will never get out of the clutches of want and struggle because you will always have to tie your needs to the apron strings of those who produce them at whatever cost they choose to sell their products. The bottom line, you will always get the short end of the stick. If the West will not give us better terms of trade, and who would, as the current system is skewed to their advantage, then create your own hub of industries here and they will be forced to reduce their prices, like it or not. But because we've not done that, because they know we have no real choice as a consumer-oriented market, they do whatever they please. And our leaders who are in the position to get us out of that vicious cycle sit down and watch as though they were clueless. Do you need to be a nuclear physicist to know this? Do you? This was why Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the visionary leader, gave us the Ghana Shoe Factory, the Ghana Jute Factory, the match-producing factory at Kede. Today, we import matches. The Ghana Glass Factory at Abosso, the Takwa Gold Processing Factory, the Meat Processing Factory in Bolga, the Akasanoma Radio Factory, and the Paper Processing Factory. This was why in 1964, Nkrumah gave us the Komenda Sugar Factory. But look at what we did to all of what he bequeathed to us. I read recently that, we're going to have, a revamp of the Komenda Sugar Factory. One factory per. Look at the merry-go-round we've done. Why? If other countries had sought development in this roundabout manner, would they ever have developed? The Minister for Trades and Industry is now saying the Komenda Sugar Factory is 98% complete. Ayo. We pray it takes off as planned. Godspeed, Mr. Minister. Nkrumah gave us a gold refining factory in Takwa. We let it die. Today, how many gold refineries do we have? Isn't it sickening that for a country that has produced gold for centuries, we are so far behind in terms of refining it? Do you see how backward our thinking is? So countries like Switzerland take our cocoa, process it, and we buy all of these foreign brands of chocolate for an arm and a leg. Our gold is bought, refined, and sold back to us as trinkets and all other kinds of jewelry at huge cost. What we could have kept within our system to boost our economy is funneled out to build other economies. And we claim to have brains in economic circles. How many years will it take to change this? Forever? Haba. Nkrumah gave us the Atomic Energy Commission, the National Nuclear Research Institute, Akakpo, to be responsible for all matters relating to peaceful uses of atomic energy. What did we do with them? Just look. Look at the things Nkrumah did. I think I'll add another title to Nkrumah, Osiadieyo. Nkrumah gave our institutions of education a boost. Ghana awards own degrees. Look at that. The University of Ghana awarding its own degrees. The Tema smelter production starts in 1967. Now this, they did not allow him to get to the point where he would execute this. But look at the thinking. It was going to produce her first finished aluminium in April 1967. Look at Indonesia today and how the smelting of aluminium has changed their economy. Look at what it has done, the billions it is contributing to their economy. We were going to get this. It was truncated. Look at these. Our source of power, Akosombo. Ghana produces first chocolate at Tema, all under Nkrumah. The Kolebu Teaching Hospital, again, under Nkrumah. He had that foresight, that vision. Young doctors were going to be paid more, 1964. In fact, he had such an ambition that the Ghanaian would go places, go the world over. The world will hear the voice of Ghana. Ghana's Radio and Television Corporation is expanding its external service to enable the voice of Ghana to be heard in every part of the world by 1965. What happened to that? What happened? Isn't it shocking that we are so slow in terms of going solar, especially for a country seeking better sources of energy? Look at our North African neighbors and the strides they are making. Just you look at what Morocco is doing. The Noah Complex Solar Power Farm is the largest concentrated solar power plant in the world. Located in the Sahara Desert, the project has a 580 megawatt capacity and produces electricity to more than 1 million people and aims to reduce carbon emissions by almost 760,000 tons annually. Look at what Algeria is doing. What stops us with our all year round sunshine from tapping into same? We say we are paying for unused excess power supply. Any thinker knows what the economists tell us. When you have something you don't need, or have too much of something you want, and if others have some of the things you need, but they also need the thing you have in excess or do not need too much of, you simply exchange. It's called utility maximization. Whatever happened to critical thinking? Just you look at how our economy is bleeding, because we have not insulated ourselves even in the least of ways, economically speaking. As I speak, our foreign reserves are running so thin that some economists feel we must run to the IMF as quickly as we can, because we've been burning through them since January. It's been exactly 126 days since faraway Russia punched Ukraine in the face. Ukraine suffered a nosebleed and a bad fever, but still remains standing. But we in Ghana, over 10,000 kilometers away, as a result of that same punch, which came nowhere near hitting us, suffer paralysis from the waist down. That's a snapshot of what our situation is like. That's the easiest analogy I can use to describe our current state. We are not self-sufficient in anything, not one. Rather sadly, we had it all at independence. But strangely, the flight of our envisaged progress never took off. As Martin Luther King Jr. of blessed memory said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. I ask, if we are not yet flying by producing cars, how about crawling and starting with body parts or engines? Look at this. All of these vehicles. This was known as the Turtle. If you look carefully, I don't want to zoom, but you can go check the records. This was known as the Turtle, produced right here. This, the Bwafo and the Adum, they were initiated by concepts, blueprints from the Nkrumah era, and some of these produced under Ignatius Kutu Echampo. Can we not, on the back of producing PPE when COVID-19 struck, start state-run clothing lines to create jobs and reduce the vast outflows of foreign currency our people take to Turkey, China, Dubai, and the United Arab Emirates and elsewhere to purchase same? You see, the black African's problem is that for most of us, we never learn or are too lazy to do what the others elsewhere are doing. We tend to be what the economists call laggards, but there often is a hefty price to pay for being such a sloth in crucial areas of national endeavor. This point became acutely evident when COVID-19 hit us and we had no vaccines. We were running around literally like headless chickens and even getting duped in some instances, all in a bid to grab some vaccines because we had no homegrown industries for that. For a while, there was a lot of talk about starting vaccine-producing companies and blah, blah, blah. I hope we get to see some of them before our current government's tenure runs out. Beloved brothers and sisters, we have a massively blessed country, a country blessed with every good gift. But we are, sorry to say, a silly people with inept leaders. We are silly because we fail to honestly push our leaders for what we know they should be doing and delivering, what we deserve. Now, if you also make enough to take your family round Ghana on vacation by so doing, boost local tourism and reduce your stress, would it be bad? Why should our leaders live lavish lives all the time while we languish in poverty in perpetuity? Aren't we also deserving of good things? If not, then why do we even vote leaders into power? Tell me. Like I keep saying, these leaders we keep electing in the Fourth Republic only understand being pushed hard against the wall before they act. They remind me of that Fela Kuti song, Zombie. Zombie no go unless you tell them to go. Let's wise up, people. Now is the future. If we lose our grip on the now, there will be no future. Neocolonialism is happening right now. If we don't break free from the yoke of dependence now, we shall make the work doubly difficult for our children. Let's come together and save our motherland. I challenge our leaders to man and woman up, take the bull by the horns, and lead us into that land of prosperity flowing with milk and honey. And if they will not or cannot, let's keep searching till we find those who can. Assembly simple cry. Let's take a look at these slides before I hit the end. This is what Nkrumah gave us. This is just a snapshot, a brief snapshot of what the Osajifo gave us. Match factory in Kade, Akosombo Textiles Limited. The shoe factory in Kumasi. Why are we importing so many shoes? The Pualugu tomato factory, today Burkina Faso. That is where we get our tomatoes from, most of them. Commander Sugar Factory. Nsawam Cannery, Brick and Tile Factory. Takwa Bonsa Tire Factory. We shouldn't be importing tires. Bolgatanga Meat Processing Factory. The rice mill in that same place. Gehok Fiber Products Company. Now, look at the 1D1F initiative. The claim is that all of these projects are at different stages of completion, 278 in number, out of which those operational are 106. Of course, we know some of them were already extant and some activity was done to boost them. Projects under construction, 148, and those being prepared, 24. But stay with me. It gets interesting. The 1D1F initiative, in terms of its budgetary allocation, 216.2 million in 2022. But look at that. Take a close look at this. 198.75 million. That is the seed money for the National Cathedral. Priorities, do you see? This is what we are giving to 1D1F for a whole year. And this is just the seed money equivalent for the National Cathedral. In recent years, you can see an upward trajectory in terms of how much we are spending. But how much of a priority is it when you look at this? This is the Commander Sugar Factory. This is what we've known for years now. In all its, borrowing the words of my colleague, rusted glory. Now, if you look at the investments we've made in there, 36.5 million under the Mahama administration, it didn't produce sugar for the past 5 years. Then you look at more focus on that. expected number of jobs it would have created per the Mahama administration, 7,300 jobs, 1,250 tons of sugar cane daily. You add these two, 36.5 million to 28, you'll get something around what? $64.5 million. What did we get out of it? How much have we got? So you see how we are bleeding. My research, though we do not have figures to put to it, tells me that time and again, over the decades, we've been investing in the Komenda Sugar Factory. We've lost so much. What do we have to show? So Ghana, as I end, I leave you with the words of the sage, the Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who's speaking on the 20th of July, 1948, to the first batch of students at the Ghana National College, which he founded, said, pay attention. If you've not listened to anything I've said, pay attention to this. Nkrumah says, the African today is conscious of his capabilities. Educational and cultural backwardness is the result of historical conditions. But for you, think, study hard, work with sustained effort. As never before, we want thinkers, thinkers of great thoughts. We want doers, doers of great deeds. Of what use is your education if you cannot help your country in her hour of need? Let all of us, most especially our leaders, reflect on that. Think about it. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I do this because I am genuinely passionate about Ghana and dream of our motherland achieving her full potential. These are my thoughts for you on another Friday morning, served hot, raw, unedited, and undiluted. God bless Ghana.
So today the full rollout of the e-levy will come off. But in the past we've also heard of reduction in transactions. So what is really happening, and how do merchants, or what do merchants make of the full rollout of the e-levy and all about the e-levy? So we are on the street again to interact. Let me start with one of our own around the area. Chief, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
By His Almighty grace, I'm doing well.
So I'm sure you've seen how the transactions are going since they started to today. What do you see?
For me, I don't think it will be successful as the government expects, or they will achieve whatever they wanted. The reason being is that, concerning the system, the financial system in the country now, a lot of people are not getting incomes the way they expect, you see. So when their incomes are low and the government is also taking part of their income, they feel it, you see. And I can say everyone has something to say about financial situation in the country. So looking at it, if something they want to achieve something successful out of the e-levy, I'll prefer that maybe they come a little down to, let's say, 0.6. I'm saying that because I did some checks and I realized that there are certain African countries that are also running this our electronic mobile monies, and they also have these taxes that some countries are charging 0.6, others are 1%, and others. You see, and ours, you see, the problem I think our political parties normally are going wrong is that, you see, before election times, what they do is they come to us on the ground, they visit us in their houses, they even come to our churches, wherever we gather, they speak to us that they need our votes. But when they come, this is what they will do to help the country going. You see, and this is concerning money. We expect that before they will even pass it, they should also come to us on the ground, you see, and ask for our opinion, how we are going to accept it for it to be successful. But they didn't come to us on the ground. You see, I heard they had some forums at other places and things. But you ask yourself that how many people were able to attend to the forum to understand their views. But if they come to us in their houses, you know, the illiterates are more than the literates. So if the literates buy it, you should look at what will happen. The illiterates will not buy it, and they will be suffering. Right now, as an agent, what I've come to realize is people don't want to transfer from their phones again because of the taxes. You see, they rather give us the money to do the sending, which is wrong. But we don't have any option because they don't have the money, and they are not refusing to send from their phone. You can't force them. You see, so that is what is going on now. And from today to the system has changed. I learned that the only ID card that will be accepted throughout every transaction you do, especially when it comes to cash out or banking is only Ghana card. You see, and it's also having challenge because most of the people have not received their Ghana card from the NI offices. You see, so you ask yourself that the people that have not received their Ghana card, how are they also going to transact today?
So in terms of volumes of transactions, how is it doing? You know, is it increasing, is it reduction, is it reducing, or what it is?
Yeah, the volumes, I can say, it hasn't reduced so much, but it has reduced on the party of the customer. Why I'm saying that is, you see, before they deposit the money on their phone, which that is the directives of mobile money. You deposit the money on your phone, then you do the sending from your phone to wherever recipient you are sending it. That is how the system has to be like. But this time, they are not doing it from their phone. So that drastically from that aspect has fallen. That place has failed. You see, right now we are doing the sending. You see, we are doing the sending, and you should imagine maybe the money that they're supposed to get when the customer send, they will not get it. So how do they?
It is coming from you.
Yes, and we in our transactions there is no e-levy from us. So how would they also achieve their money? That is the problem. So that is the fall that I think, and they have to look at it. If they want the customers to continue doing their transactions and they want to be taxed, then I think they should bring it down. You understand? And you know, the main reason about all this thing is that Ghanaians are saying that when the money comes, they don't see what the money is being used for. So supposing they have evidences of things that they will use the money for, I think everybody wants the best for the country. You understand? They want the country to go ahead so that our future generations will also come and enjoy like how other foreign countries are also enjoying, you see. So if something could be done, you see, so that it will convince the Ghanaian person that, oh, let me pay this levy. It is for the future or the success of the country. They will do it. Nobody is willing to destroy the country. Everybody wants the best for the country. That is my opinion.
Thank you very much. So let's try and engage more people on the street. So we are still on the street talking to Momo merchants to understand the impact of the e-levy. We are here at Circle to engage this merchant here.
No, we don't work on our say.
Yeah, the e-levy buy no. They quite enough so affect a mobile money adjustment.
Like I'm a Jumana kofom. Send a customers and come open no because obi wo ha obeyi skakra and that's what be sending now bo price na os wo the e-levy aka ho wa charge aka ho na omo ne nya argument akasa like omo no free say ye merchants for na yama prices na ko high e be send 1,000 charge 10 cedis obo obaka say wo boa nya 10 cedis na wo charge because of e-levy by it na o charges sir what I say am I Juma na from serious from those say o my iska sama ye slow kakra but amana ye we cry mobile money affect more because we all depend on Juma way enye nyina na sabi o yetimi ko school do echi ye di Juma way na like a survival kakra sem e ba sa na di ama marketing asay no kra serious asay no kra
officer there quite yebetumi afa so aye new year mona mo ye adwuma I'm sure say what ye adwuma na sesa yira obetumi ama aban afoto kwan betumi afa so aye ama na ye yi
like to me ne de enko mu yi free ho ma ye ya enkeye to me ne de because mu yi free ho ma ye ya enkeye because merchant for ne de to be frank I affect ye ebem enfa so a bia a day ni nipa no beba be yi no MTN for e wo commission mo de ma ye ama commission ne so aba low cra like omu percentage bia e bia wo ye adwuma no mo sa de ma but ama na tia aba from na like omu yi free ho ma ye ya omu nti ase ke be boa ye mo e be boa ye
enti ebra 11 mile no na o ye transaction sign a day e ba ye o transaction sign obetumi ho
because 11 by a day because marketing na ye a day no e bia susu a na bia dey obetumi twa be 50 cedis no increase that time na 11 by no but e buy ne dey e dey ko obetumi aka say we go fie kra na 50 cedis kra ampo no na ye den na ye den because ama ejuma na ye basa affect ye more pa.
So what this lady is telling me is that the e-levy has impacted negatively on their businesses because before the e-levy, they used to do a lot of transactions. Now they are doing less transactions. And customers are always fighting with them over how much they have to pay in doing the transactions. They feel it is them who have caused the increment in the e-levy. And that, she says, is not the issue, that the e-levy is really affecting their businesses. She tells me that if prior to e-levy she could save 50 cedis a day, today she can't even earn the 50 cedis to think of saving that amount. Things are difficult. She is proposing a complete scrap of the levy if it's possible. Let's still speak to more people on the street.
I'm doing good.
Good. Since the e-levy was introduced, how has it been for you as a merchant?
For me, like I see everything to be normal, and then the little change that I see is it has increased the cash out more than the sending. Because right now people don't want to send from their wallet and pay e-levy, because the e-levy is even more than the cash outs and the sending fee. So nowadays people come and then cash out, then the merchants can give them without paying e-levy. Because if you are sending about 1,000 Ghana cedis, including the e-levy is like 27 cedis. But the person will come and then cash out, pay 10 cedis, then we send give them free. That is it.
So in terms of volumes of transaction, it hasn't reduced, just that people are not doing deposit.
You know, we do it on monthly basis, and then I can't say it's a fix. Now, aside the e-levy, like, or let me say after the e-levy, what I'm seeing now is like the cash out is going more than the sending. Yeah. And then the deposit too is not coming like I used to be. Yes. Because right now everybody wants to escape e-levy. You get it? Because the charges is too much. Charges is too much. Me per se, I can't send money from my phone to another person. Yes. And I won't do that. I can't even pay e-levy. For what? Imagine my salary is, let's say, 400 cedis, and then at the end of the month I want to send my mom small. I want to, you see, including the e-levy, it means it's not going to be possible just like that, because sending my mom 100 cedis or 200 cedis and paying fee more than that. Me per se, if I want to send to my mom, I'll allow cash out, then the merchant to withdraw. I'll pay my because I will not pay it, because the government should do something about it. No, the system is hard. It's hard to get money, and then you get the money too, then use it to pay tax. Yeah, and the tax too. Imagine me, I'm using mobile money. Someone is not using mobile money. It means I will be paying tax. The person who is not using mobile money is not paying tax. And I can't be paying tax while someone is not paying. We all escape. That is it.
So what do you expect government to do?
You should reduce the tax. It's too much. The 1.5% is too much. Even the mobile operator, that is, let's say the MTN on the Vodafone, who brought the mobile money, is taking 1% of it, and it's having a cap. It's having a cap. If you withdraw more than 1,000, the charge is 10 cedis. But you levy as more as you send, then you increase your chance of, let me say, your tax payment. Your tax also increase. Because if you send 500 cedi, you are not going to pay the same tax as you send 1,000 Ghana cedis. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you too.
Over. Na edzai.
Na me admo.
11 buy no, there kind of see afa so impact adwuma na we no.
But 11 buy the adwuma na I had kakra. I had go so we be yisika. Ko ni see about 11 ti. Go yi. Ama adwuma no dey nka the transaction here no apart from ama the more the and my medication, you know, I was no medicating go for you and say, who is any cigar? I'm will be a young, and I say, we young to a babu, my Jumano, and me was be a wine and was more money. A boy, this is more medication a month or four. I should make my bar.
Ebimo say Nancy no, Ebimo Basom by a transaction. Omo use card no for account mo no mo de amamo merchant no mo send am obi omo send from omo wallet and na omo nya deposit nso so na te
me ebu oba oyi obabi a instead of so be send na egu free na kan sam obi no do oyi obabi o do house what my kan zuma me o do to kan so oboa o ya mo obi no so be so doji 11 no na so be no be send be so doji Ness na nyane dia. Di na se ni ya hwema hu se bebri na omoshada ye se fatuma kan ness na nyane dia. Di ya hu se na oka.
E dos won.
Na ya me ye dos ba se ya hu. Di hu ni fun wa ha. Di anya ma ho. Di se o tu di mu. Ansa na wa se ni. Ni be bo amadwuma no so etimi okoso.
So what he is saying the e-levy has affected their business because people feel they will be charged e-levy even if they are withdrawing. So the volumes have gone down. What he has seen is that people will withdraw from other places. They will come to him and say, deposit into my account, but in reality, it is not his or her account. He or she is transferring into another account, but because he wants to swerve the e-levy, he would have to pretend to him that he is depositing into his account. He is asking government and the GRA to do more education on this because the Momo has been really helpful to a lot of people. And therefore, with the right education for people to understand e-levy, he thinks that will boost the industry. This has been the thought from the street of Accra. What do you also say about e-levy, especially when the second phase is to start today? Join us on our social media handles and let's talk. This has been the Citizen Microphone from the street of Accra. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Over to you, Ben Akakpo.
Right, so you've seen it all on the show this morning from Felix Kwatiofosu talking to us about what our economy is facing and whether we should go the way of the IMF. I shared with you my blunt thoughts, and now you've heard about the e-levy going onto that common platform. But what are your thoughts? The show is all about you. So just call in and share your thoughts with us. The e-levy is moving full steam ahead. What are your thoughts? What is your take? 0302 211 691 extension 2 is the number to call. 0302 211 691 extension 2. It's going to be at the bottom of your screen shortly. But just to re-echo some of what has been said on the show, Felix Kwachiof also reminding us that, look, the economy is in a bad state, or telling us that the economy is in a bad state and we need to do something about it. They have endorsed the IMF program, and he says he suspects within the coming days, he wouldn't be surprised if there is a move to the IMF for us to start a program. The former President, John Dramani Mahama, has also called for Ken Ofori-Atta to be sacked. Do you agree with him? He's calling for more fiscal discipline and calling for a sharing of thoughts like happened under them at the Senchi gathering, the Senchi consensus, if you like. What do you think of that? What do you make of it? Do you agree with him? As I shared my blunt thoughts with you today, I was just talking about industrializing and how we're failing to catch the boat and what the consequences could be for our country. Maybe not for us today, but for the generations to come, our children and their children. And finally, we've heard of the e-levy. Well, we have Emmanuel from Accra. We'll take him and come back to the subject. Emmanuel, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm well, how for do? How are you too?
Yeah, I'm also fine.
We thank God. Fine. What are your quick thoughts for us?
Well, I'm calling to talk about the e-levy. Today is 1st of July, and as agents, we are to implement the use of the Ghana card.
Are you an agent?
Yep.
Okay.
But the difficulty we are having is that, the bankers informed us ahead of time that they are going to use the Ghana card only for transactions. But with the mobile money side, a lot of the customers were not informed. It is only this morning that we realized that it is only the Ghana card that we are to be used for only for cash out. And so it's creating a lot of problems for us this morning. A lot of the customers come and we cannot withdraw money for them because they don't have the Ghana card with them.
But customers have been required to use the Ghana card for a while now. So why have you not been doing that?
So what I'm saying is that with the withdrawal, as in mobile money withdrawals, customers were not informed earlier. At first, we can use various ID cards like the voters' ID cards, the health insurance.
I get what you mean. Right.
But now, from today onwards, we are to use only the Ghana card. And customers were not informed earlier. With the banking system, they informed us earlier that we are to use only the Ghana card.
But
today, the mobile money, people who are withdrawing from their accounts can only use the Ghana card. And a lot of people are not aware of it.
Right, but even before now, I mean, most of the places I was withdrawing from, they would ask for your Ghana card. So what happened?
So what I'm saying is, today is 1st of July. Customers were not informed that for the mobile money withdrawals, they are going to use only Ghana card.
Right.
That is the challenge I'm complaining about.
Okay.
At first, we can use other IDs to withdraw. But today, you cannot use any other ID card to withdraw. It's only the Ghana card. And that is the challenge we are having now.
Point made, and that's a bit of a challenge. Emmanuel calling in from Accra. Abindao is in Kumasi. Abindao, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Akakpo.
Sorry for keeping you for a while. Hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm well. Only that at times I'm on and off.
You are on and off. Why? What's happening?
Yeah. Actually, on the IDs or ID cards to be used for the cash out and the other financial transactions, I think that the government should come again and still give us some extensions because others could not register for the Ghana cards, and others too, their names were wrongly spelled on the ID cards, and they can't use it. They have to go for corrections among others, and others, their IDs are locked up. And when you look at it, too, the system is no other feasible that you can just go today and it's easy that you can register or you can get those corrections done so that you can have your card among others. So far as the other ID cards, like the voter ID cards and then the rest are there, I think that they should come again and then extend the time for it so that at least those who have issues on wrong spellings of their names, those who could not register among others, they can manage and cope up. If not, in fact, it will be a huge burden on some people. And on the Momo too, I think that the reason is the 1.5 is too much for Ghanaians. That's why people are escaping the transaction.
Right.
So I think that if the government can see our
Right. Thank you, Abindao, for sharing your thoughts. Dennis is in Awoshi. Dennis, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Please speak up a little for me. Thank you for joining the conversation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to comment on the IMF.
Right.
Probably, I think that should be a big option for the current government to probably to take action now, because all the indications show that our economy is in very, very bad state. So they shouldn't shy from going back to the IMF. Maybe they criticized the previous government some time ago when things were bad. They were able to go to the IMF. Maybe they must be very, very feeling shy to go back to IMF because they were able to criticize the previous government. I think that should be very, very bad situation for us if they could wait for some time to come.
Right.
So probably my thought is we should quickly do something about it and go back to the IMF. If only that will help us as a country.
Okay.
They should do something about it and go. They shouldn't feel shy about it.
All right. That was Dennis in Awoshi. Our final caller, Abu in Second D. Abu, good morning.
Good morning, how are you? Calling from Second D, Abu.
Right. The connection is not so good, but go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Abu. Hello, Abu? Okay. It appears we've lost Abu. But for all of you who made the time to call, we're very grateful that you made the time. We really appreciate you. Without you, there's no us. So thank you for joining us on the AM show and keep reflecting on those matters we've discussed on the show today. But up next, we give you even more content on Joy News Desk, where you can get all the information you need. That is up next, so do stay. But from us, it's bye-bye and have a wonderful day.